OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
Friday morning, 7:30. You're very welcome along to OTB AM. Shane, good morning to you.
Morning, Adrian. How are things?
Good morning to you.
Adrian and Shane, happy Friday.
What are you Googling right now, Colin?
Just what happened last night. No, I was putting it out there, right? I was having this chat the other day with someone, and we were like, how did Mass start? What's the first line that the priest would say?
I thought you meant how did someone come up with the idea of Mass? But
No,
you
I
actually
understand.
mean
I understand the origins.
What
But
was
how does the priest start Mass? Because at the end they were like, let's go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Thanks be to God. So we have that. But how does Mass start? Was it a prayer or a general greeting?
I don't know how this all started, but I do know that 5 minutes ago I picked up the Daily Mail and was devastated to
I
read.
couldn't believe Adrian's face. He hadn't heard the
I
news.
thought he was
Such a
joking.
big part of my college years, particularly. Jerry Springer, the man who invented trash TV, it says here. I would not describe this trash TV.
It was such good TV.
Compelling TV, has passed away at the age of 79.
Jerry. It was just a staple of all of our.
Not right for a chain.
No, that's.
And Barry Humphries during the week as well. All the greats.
Yeah. I was going to say a couple of comedic greats because Jerry Springer show was comedy, wasn't it?
It was annoying. There was annoying on it.
There's a smirk. Like sometimes when there was people on the show that were quite clearly mates, but they're shouting at each other, and Jerry has a little smirk behind him. He's like, "This is brilliant." He knew it was
A lot
brilliant.
of acting, I would have thought.
A lot of
too.
acting.
It was like in everybody's part, right?
Yeah, 100%. No, but Jerry Springer was a bit of a legend. Only 79. I was a bit shocked when I heard that yesterday. I have to
He's a
say.
young man, like.
Yeah. So that's
Got to the
Jerry.
bottom of the. If you got to the bottom of the fourth mystery over there,
can't
you're
get
still,
it.
you're still struggling.
I can't get it, but look, we'll move on.
Yeah,
Loads
I'd
to talk
be
about.
happy to move on from
Yeah.
that one. All right, yeah. To the snooker, of course, because myself and Shane were glued to it last night. Shane, it was.
It's hard to beat it, lads.
Remember now what we decided beforehand. Come on now.
We could have an Irish
game
winner.
plan.
Colin, we could have an Irish winner for the first time since Ken Doherty in '97.
And we'll
Mark
have
Allen.
plenty of time to talk about that.
Mark Allen's 5-3 ahead of
And
Mark
he's right to
Selby.
think of it now in the semi-final. You see, best of 33. We're down to one table, as Shane's been telling us for the last 3 months, it seems, since it kicked off. And
Yeah.
he's flying at 5-3 up and
Unbelievable.
cooking along. Lovely break yesterday. He was nip and tuck. He was 4-3 up. Takes the blue and cannons into the pack.
Yeah.
Gets a bit of a lucky break with one of the Reds hovering over a pocket and cleans up pretty
That
much
last
from there.
frame, like Selby could have taken that last frame, and yet it was
Long way
very-
to go. How many more sessions could they have?
I think it's 4 sessions in total. It's best of 33. It could be 4 sessions.
Right.
Sometimes it's finished in 3. But the way Alan's playing, like the way he's played all season, you wouldn't bet against him. Like he's lost 6 stone, as I was saying the other day. Some of the Irish lads went up to him in Sheffield last week and said, "You're half the man you used to be." He's
Ronnie helped him to.
He did,
lose
yeah.
a bit of weight.
Ronnie was fairly pivotal in all that. I once saw Mark Allen hit a 147 at an exhibition. Ronnie was there as well at the Hillgrove Hotel in Monaghan Town.
Wow.
So he's a man that likes a little exhibition. John Virgo was there doing live commentary.
Are they all enthused now by the fact that Ronnie's out? Is that suddenly like
I
the
would say-
vista's open and
Yeah,
he's
100%.
here for the taking now?
Because playing Ronnie is you're, like snooker is never really home and away, but when you're playing Ronnie, you're very much the away player. Like nobody wants you to win. The crowd is clearly not behind you. But Ronnie being out, I'd say, gives them all a kick. I'd say I couldn't confidently now predict who is going to win of the remaining 4.
Mark Selby is class, but he's not good for snooker, says John Claffey.
I like Mark Selby as a person, and he's come out and said a lot of good things about his own mental health battles and that sort of thing.
right.
And he had a very tough upbringing as well. But his style of play, is fairly tough to watch. I think Ronnie has called him the torturer. It's just slow and it's methodical.
Grinds you down a bit.
Yeah, completely thought out. It's like Cliff Thorburn kind of vibes.
We used to have in the house that I grew up in at home. We used to have a room that was called the Old Shop because, funny enough, it used to be a shop. And myself and my brother converted it into a Crucible Theatre column. And we used to play. We got it for one Christmas. We got snooker table Steve Davis Pot Black.
Ah, yes.
So it wasn't your full size clearly, but it was somewhere between that and one of the little jokey ones.
Yeah.
And we used to go full bore. Like we'd have our little corners. We'd have our drinks set up. You'd enter the Crucible. We would play for days on end. There would be absolute war.
I'd say so between brothers.
You knocked the balls. You hit the table. I didn't get that. And we'd our little scoreboard as we went along. So I was suggesting to him now, like, 30 years later, that we should try and recreate that at a club somewhere in Dublin.
But you should, for sure. And I think these next few weeks, a lot of people will probably pick up a cue for the first time in years. It's the same as around Wimbledon. Everyone wants to play tennis again.
Brilliant. But for the kids particularly, Ruckus, what do you think, Colin? What are your thoughts on that?
I can't believe the amount of space Eric Dyer gave Marcus Rashford last night for the second goal.
This is what I'm dealing with.
Did you, when you were younger, what was your introduction to snooker? Was it?
My introduction to snooker, Ken was probably my introduction to snooker.
Right.
But not the 97 when I was probably just a bit too young, but the 03.
And did you start playing off the back of that, like?
I didn't play, like, we had a small, tiny snooker table. I mean, one of those tiny
little
the little crap
you can't
ones.
even count that.
I know,
you
you
travel one nearly, like.
Yeah, essentially. And then I would have played, like, misspent youth, playing pool in the pub with your mates, that sort of thing. But I just loved watching it. There was something cathartic about it. There was something relaxing about it. But there was also something insanely intense about it.
Yeah,
and I found that when I'm at.
Are you a competitive person by nature?
Ridiculously
competitive.
Are you? Oh, remarkably competitive.
Like, if you were in playing a game against snooker against your brother, for example, things weren't going.
Yeah, well, potentially. Myself and the brother get on well. We get on grand.
But how would that be like if it was, 8-all, next round the winner?
I'd freak out. Like, I'd be fine with it, but then if he slagged me on the way home, I'd be like, no, I can't. Even if we're playing board games at home, I
can't cope with that.
No,
there are certain people in my life who, if I get beaten, I'm just not happy with it.
Yeah, it will frustrate the life of you. Yeah, the brotherly stuff is. Do you have a brother, Colin? No brothers. See, the brother thing is a different vibe.
This is making good columns.
It is, yeah.
Let us know in the comments why you want us to talk about snooker, and tell us how much you love snooker. Tell us your first memories. Did you watch Higgins in '82, the Black Ball final in '85? Prove Colin wrong here, basically, by filling the comments with snooker.
Dara O'Toole says that he's assuming that a young snooker player had to take much harder shots than his brother. # crappy quiz.
There you go. Oh, see what he's done there. Yeah.
Yeah, there was often sleight of hand.
JP Wright, voice actor, looking at United's fixtures and form, they could drop out of the top 4 and allow Villa or United in. Credit to Newcastle, who were awesome again.
Were you alive for the Black Ball final in '85? No, you would have been too young.
So Villa could actually really get top 4 here. Like, we were kind of joking.
It's like a twin track. It's a twin track show this morning.
Yeah, we were joking the other day.
I mean, if we're going to talk about football this morning, it'll obviously have to be the United game last night. United Tottenham.
You know what you wanted, Colin? You happy? You happy, yeah?
Is this a trend? Is this 2-2 stuff, 2-0 up at half time and fall to crap in the second half? Is this a trend now? Can we...
You'd be concerned as United, if you're United on that second half performance, because the 2-0 you're thinking this is game over, the top 4 is secured. I think the top 4 is still secured when you look at the table, but it's more the manner of the performance.
I don't know.
Do you not think so?
I don't know. I thought we were only saying 2 days ago. And I think the top 4 was as it was.
Surely even more of that belief now.
Just a very, very outside shot of Aston Villa, possibly. Like, it is actually remarkable that Spurs are ahead of Villa.
Still.
Yeah, just about, like, level on points, but they're ahead of them.
That just says how bad Villa's start of the season
was.
Yeah,
it's incredible. And, like, the job that Unai Emery's done. And I was thinking in my head this morning, I was envisioning a world where last day of the season Aston Villa break into the top 4 at the expense of Manchester United. And then Unai Emery is interviewed afterwards, and I'm imagining, would he give any credit to Steven Gerrard? Would he be really humble and euphoric and be like, look, I was only inheriting a great
He
squad.
could only do that if it was followed by a laugh, because...
I know, but I wonder...
15th in the table when...
I don't know why my mind went there, but that's what I was thinking. I was like, I wonder how gracious he'll be, because it is remarkable the job he's done. I think you're right. I think the top 4 as it is, as we're looking at right now this morning in the table, it's probably how it will end. But for Manchester United, it's concerning, but was very impressed by Tottenham's second half showing, because they were poor in the first half, like really, really poor. And like, I wasn't joking there when I said that, like, Eric Dyer, like, the jockeying, he didn't go near Rashford. I know it's on his weaker side, but Rashford's renowned for power on each foot.
Rio was saying in the analysis after, he was like, he was talking about it as a trend with Dyer. Why are you not getting in on top of him? He was saying, why are you not getting in and giving him a bit of a push and sort of like making yourself felt a bit? Jesus, standing off him, you'd sort of half understand that if he was a little bit wider, but he was really narrow. Like, it was.
And I don't know, did Dyer think he was further out from goal or had a tighter angle again? But from a United perspective, you're looking at being like, this is probably going to be a goal here. As soon as Rashford got control of the ball and it was a 1-on-1 situation, I think Longley was joining in to help.
Yeah.
But if Dyer's is showing him down that side, like, I understand he was like, I don't want him to cut in this right because you'll definitely score then. But that actually, the angle that Rashford shot from is a classic Marcus Rashford angle where it actually is quite tight. But he had such power and accuracy that it would go in. I had no doubt in my mind that he was going to finish that chance.
Yeah. The United team just doesn't look the same without Martinez or Varane. Like, it's just
and also the first choice left back has to play centre back, even though he's doing a pretty good job at that, Luke Shaw. So the back four last night is nowhere near what United's strongest team is. Casemiro is slightly falling off the peak of February's form, but as Phil was saying earlier, in Opposite League, and he was like, look, it's just blown out of proportion massively, the hoopla around Casemiro, and that he was never that brilliant when everyone was saying he was remarkable. And that Sunday Times article was written about him in February being one of the greatest midfielders to play in the Premier League.
He was brilliant,
but also he's not playing that badly anymore. It's just it's slightly tailored off from reputation that he had in February.
Maybe he looked brilliant because of the players that were around him. Like, if you're thrust into that United team, you're going to look good anyway, because there's
but a lot of players haven't looked good in the last decade when they are thrust into it, that are on paper brilliant players.
Yeah.
They've fallen into the United culture of mediocrity. I think he actually helped to raise people's games around it. But I think you've already touched on it, Shane, is that like the missing link at the moment is the Varane and Martinez partnership, or lack of.
I think the apology
in front of them
was the thing that really, got Tottenham into, pulled Tottenham from the fires last night, wasn't it? I was thinking last night, 2-0 down at half time, post apology. Where do they go from here? Where do they go from here? Genuinely, like they're 2-0 down. You have Get Levy out of our club coming in from the stands. You have the United fans singing "Harry Kane, we'll see you in June." They get booed off at half time. You are thinking, like, it's not hindsight because we called it out during the week. The apology was embarrassing. Like, what room does it leave you?
Yeah.
And I know, look, they come back, they get 2 goals. There's a hatful of chances that either side really could have.
There was loads.
Ended up winning that game in the end, but they're both so dragged down by their own mediocrity. It feels like they're unwilling to reach out and grasp the level of victory.
That's why it was such an interesting game, because there's such flawed sides, the two of them.
Oh, completely.
And they should be much better than they are, considering what they have resources-wise. But Spurs, like, what an interesting team. There's never been a 0-0 in the Premier League in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And Spurs haven't drawn at home 0-0 in the Premier League since 2017.
That's mad, isn't it?
And also at the same time,
maybe it's not. I don't know what the stats.
They're conceding bucket loads of goals. So only Leeds United have conceded more in the Premier League in 2023 than Spurs, and yet they're 5th. So they actually are. They're a high scoring team. If you look at their goals for, like, it's more than most. So you're thinking, geez, if you were to reflect on this campaign for Tottenham, you'd be like, they were kind of Kevin Keegan, Newcastle era, 4-3s and 3-2s, and it was all very exciting.
Yeah.
But it seems to me that it feels around Spurs that they just lose all the time, and yet they're 5th. But fair play to them for coming back.
I feel like if I was a Spurs fan, I'd be saying, I love you, but you are not serious people. They're really, I mentioned it a number of weeks back, that they're a bit of a pretend club. Like,
leaning into it here.
Like, one has a tendency to maybe overestimate things, right? Or to overstate positions and stuff.
What do you mean by pretend club, though?
5th in the table. They're just sort of makey-uppy.
They're a great club with great history. I know history.
They're a grand club with grand history. Do you know?
Who, Tottenham?
Yeah. You couldn't say they have great history. You'd never say they were like, if you start to ream off the top 20 clubs in the world, they're not really going to
list off the top 20 Tottenham players that we remember. It'd be brilliant.
Your life, they'd be great, but I mean, Fulham would have great history.
Not as good as Tottenham
as well. Georgie Best somewhere along the line.
Well, yeah, you can throw him in. Yeah.
I don't want to be triggering Tottenham fans this morning. They are a very good club with a very good history.
Yeah, it just feels their actual history. Like they won the European Cup, Winners' Cup.
The Logan Roy quote feels appropriate. They're just not. I love you, but you're not serious people.
Oh, that's what you were quoting. Oh, yeah. But they won the UEFA Cup twice, the European Cup. They won the FA Cup a number of times. Jimmy Greaves, was he a Spurs player when he scored?
You can't winning the FA Cup a number of times is no recommendation of being a great club.
Back in the day, that was a big deal.
It was a big deal. But I just think to cast aside them as being kind of like a bit meh.
They are.
I don't think so. I think they flattered to the sea
so often. Called it out years ago.
Who's that now?
It's only Tottenham.
It's only Tottenham. Well, he was quoting Ferguson, but yeah.
John Smith in the comments says Colm got up on the wrong side of the cot. Yeah, he sure did. Brian says Liverpool's run is handy.
Is it the wrong side of the cot when it's the same side every morning?
I only have one side to get up
the question.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, it was the wrong side today.
No, I thought it was totally fine.
Grant. Liverpool's run is handy aside from Villa at home. United have a few tough games left. Final spot is still open. Will Shane take back his comments on Arsenal season if United don't get top 4? Obviously. Like, my point, it was dependent on United finishing. I said I would rather United. Okay, so are any Arsenal fans out there actually going to tell me that, say for example United win the FA Cup? Now it's unlikely that they'll beat Man City, but say United win the FA Cup, they'll have won the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup, and if they get top 4, please tell me that season. How can you say that that's a worse season than Arsenal?
Well, I think
if they finish second and don't win any trophies, okay, you might say Arsenal are ahead of where United are at. Surely,
I don't know. It feels like such a reductive discussion.
But if Arsenal win the league, granted,
why can't we all be successful teams?
It's about trophies at the end of the day, isn't it? It's about development as well, but that would be development from United's perspective.
Yeah, but it already absolutely is development from an Arsenal point of view.
Oh yeah, for sure,
no question.
And the title wasn't one of their targets at the start of this season. No. But they've moved on, they've pushed on.
Probably a victim of their own success, because they've overachieved this season massively. Yeah. If they were now breaking into the top 4 and in second place, what a job Mikel Arteta has done.
Yeah.
It's just the order of the way they've gone about it. Sorry, just on last night, what do you reckon? Who would you give, or what would you lean towards? Would you give Tottenham credit for their second half showing, or would you criticise Manchester United for falling off?
More probably the former. I'd say
have a bit of both.
Bit of credit for Tottenham, I would give.
What did we say last week? There's plenty of
blame to go around. Yeah, sure. Geez, it was exactly this time last week we were reflecting on the Sevilla disaster. But United were impressive in the first half. I thought, even though they dominated possession and chances, that they still they seem to lack a bit of confidence in the final third. United, that they're not going about their business as probably fast and as confidently as they could be, certainly when you compare them. And look, it's an unfortunate comparison to 24 hours earlier when their neighbours were dominating Arsenal, but you look at how quick and ruthless City are in the attack, and United are kind of a bit unsure themselves, encapsulated by their first goal scorer last night, Jadon Sancho, who, beautiful finish, should have got a second afterwards, cleared off the line by Perisic, who himself should have equalised for Spurs.
Yeah,
it felt like a weird
Rashford scored.
Like a top 10 that you would definitely do of goal line clearances of all time.
Oh, that's a column.
But it felt like last night didn't feel like a brilliant goal line clearance.
No, he was just there. No, it's just good. It was good anticipation.
It was dribbling in, albeit.
Oh, it was good.
Well, if he wasn't there, it would have got in.
No, it would have done. I grant you that.
Yeah.
It being a goal line clearance and all.
Yeah, but you have to give him credit for positioning. The reason it wasn't so exciting was because of his anticipation.
It's a fair point.
David Hay was good. A few good stops. Bruno Fernandes as well has been impressive in recent weeks for United, when some players haven't.
It's his longest run without a goal at the club. Do you think he's been impressive?
I think he's been a fulcrum in the last few weeks. Like, United haven't been good last few weeks, but Bruno's been one of the players that has probably stood up a little bit more. He still wrecks my head and annoys me. I can't imagine how opposition fans
Well, I think
feel
everybody was saying that the collapse against Sevilla wouldn't have happened if he was there, and then obviously you see last night and you're like, well,
I don't know, he was there at Anfield when they lost 7-0. He was very much there.
Yeah.
That was a collapse. Just before we move on, lads, Everton, they're in serious trouble here. Like, I really thought
probably gone.
Thought they'd stay up, and then I was looking around at their players last night, and I was going through them individually, and I was like, yeah, I could see him in the Championship. Could see him. Do you know what was
be a complete? So they're what? So Southampton on 24 points, they're gone. Everton on 28 points, second from bottom. Leicester City on 29, and then you have the teams above that: Forest on 30, Leeds on 30. It's going to be those 5 now, because West Ham in 15th are on 34 points. So you're talking Everton, Leicester, Forest, and Leeds. 2 of those 4 go down.
Was Bazunu dropped last night? That was that the only game he hasn't played?
Yeah, and as Kathleen threw into our group there, first time ever in a round of Premier League games that an Irish player hasn't started.
Who's the stat person we need to thank for that? There was somebody on Twitter that came up with it. It's very good. Very good.
But
stat.
it is.
Irish abroad.
Irish abroad. That's a mad one, isn't it?
It is. I really was surprised that I would have thought that would have happened numerous times.
He, like, who knows, right? But he's obviously been in. I'm not watching enough Southampton games to know what Gavin Bazunu is like week in, week out. You see a little bit of him. Generally, it's highlights, so he's making a save here or there, and he looks pretty good. He's obviously been amazing for Ireland. I certainly looked at that first goal last night that they conceded, and I thought, Jesus, the keeper sort of gently shuffling across and got caught with the ball coming across him. I don't know, would Bazunu have saved it? I certainly felt as if he'd have been in a better position for it. But I don't know, who knows? I'm not watching enough of it to be able to say for sure.
Alexander Isak, one of the great assists in the Premier League last night.
Top 10.
Top 10. I was putting it out there beforehand. I was like, did he actually do a lot of skill, or did he just run in a straight line and Everton didn't know what to do with him? I think it's because he carried the ball so far.
That is a skill. Running in straight lines.
So
many players don't want to run straight. They're feared. Run for goal. That's something you're told in mini leagues when you're 7 or 8. But like, people
it's hard to run in a straight line because it's the most obvious line that you can run, and you assume that somebody's going to take you out. So actually, the skill of pretending that you're going to take a different angle, is probably as
totally. And I think there's actually a lot to be said for, like you said, Shane, you're right. Like, you should really just go direct at goal, but if you consistently lose the ball that way, you're going to lose your confidence as well. It's like, I keep on getting dispossessed because I'm going straight for goal, which I think is a lot of players take the circuitous route to avoid that confidence hit. It's like, if I go out wide and I get tackled, I'll probably go out for a throw or something, or I'll get something for it. But if you go all out down the middle, which was actually, that's why it was so remarkable to watch Erling Haaland against Arsenal, where he just had no respect for them and went right down the middle of them consistently, and Arsenal were getting destroyed as a result. Now, Haaland, I know, is a freak of nature, but I'm surprised more players don't do that and have more confidence. But it just goes to show, 'tis all in the head.
Are kids now going to be growing their hair long because Haaland has it? I think Haaland dropping the hair in the 93rd minute and scoring the minute later.
Marketing genius.
Between him and James Lowe, it's like...
When I was younger, David Beckham went bald, so I went bald. When Beckham got a Mohican, I got a Mohican.
You went
mullet.
I went bald.
Literally, I went into the barbers and remember Beckham 01, the Greece free kick?
The buzz cut.
Shave it. Like, I mean, like, I remember one footballer wore an American bandana. He played for America. And he wore a bandana, so I went to the mini leagues the next week and wore a bandana, and I bought it and got the father to buy it on eBay or something. And so it's very, very influential what footballers do. So I think a lot of kids are going to be like, can I have the Haaland
flowing locks? There's an awful lot more commitment to have to grow your hair that long than there is going in to get a buzz cut, Shane. Or buy a bandana on eBay. It's like,
a bit more difficult, growing the hair.
I interrupted you there. You were mentioning Ogbene.
Ogbene scored for Rotherham last night as well. It was probably a bit of a foul in the lead into it, and he heads it home from close range. Not so spectacular, but we should not let the day go past without name checking that.
Goal's a goal, yeah.
By the way, JP Wright, voice actor, feels like he's like a little mini ad for himself going on there every time he comes in.
Love it, yeah.
Man. I met Higgins and Goffs when he beat Hendry in 1989. Is that right?
Alex Higgins, it would be,
Hendry.
Stephen Hendry was there, yeah.
89.
Yeah.
89.
Yeah, Hendry won his first World Championship in 90.
Wow.
So there you go.
Gentlemen, and the first time I knew what whiskey smelled like.
There you go. Yeah, it was one of the, like, I saw Jimmy White the other day talking with Alex Higgins and playing with him. And Ken Doherty has the famous story of Alex Higgins at Goffs, where he was one of those players who could play drunk, like he just could do it for some reason. And he would if he asked for an orange, he told the usher, if I asked for an orange juice, get me a vodka orange, and if I asked for a vodka orange, get me a double. And that was the consistent thing throughout Goffs. And Higgins just, I mean, he was a genius, flawed genius, obviously, but unbelievable. I saw him actually in the last few months of his life. I was at an autograph event over in Birmingham in 2010. A load of astronauts were over there, of course. That's why I was there. But Alex Higgins was there, and like I couldn't even go up to him because he looked so frail and fraught. And
you love those autograph events. I couldn't think of anything worse.
Really?
Yeah.
They're great crap.
Autographs I never really got, I'm not going to lie.
I was big into them. Back when I was, I think it was like 15, 16, I was really into it. Yeah. Like collecting autographs and writing.
So you're still into it?
I don't ask anyone for autographs anymore.
No, it's a bit weird.
Yeah, it's a bit weird.
Isn't it?
Kids nowadays just go for the selfies.
Yeah.
That's the new autographs. There's probably something else that people go for, but that's my that was my thing.
Noel Cahill says that Spurs are only a big club because of their London location and a lot of friends in the media. So I'm sure that's a topic that we'll come back to again. Here's what's coming up between now and 10.
Sorry, Colum's silence is deafening there.
Jasmine Baba has been standing by for the last few minutes. That's why Colum is getting uneasy and telling us to move on. We're going to talk, dissect last night's game and look a little bit deeper into City Arsenal as well. We're going to have Alan Quinlan to look ahead to the Heineken Champions Cup semi-finals and a few more bits and bobs as well. Gilly Flaherty will join us to reflect on last night's Champions League and also looking ahead to an interesting weekend in the WSL. Anna Caplice will preview the final weekend of Women's Six Nations action. Jess Kelly is back in studio and Shane is off to space a little bit later on, is really all you need to know about that. And Keith Wood was in conversation with Nathan yesterday. That's coming your way at 9:30 this morning. So that's where we're at. Do please keep the comments coming into us. We have loads, as you can tell, to come over the next couple of hours, and it is OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night edition is available now. It is 6 minutes to 8. Jasmine Baba, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thanks for being so patient.
No, I enjoyed the conversation about long hair. I've been growing mine myself, so I know how Haaland feels.
You trump us in that regard, Jasmine. There's no doubt about it. Let's get into the football. We will come to the City Arsenal game, obviously it being one of the defining games of the season in just a couple of moments' time. But first of all, in the action last night, we've been debating here about was the second half collapse actually a collapse, or were Tottenham that good? Is it a trend from United? What are your takeaways from the game?
I think Tottenham were a lot more confident in attack throughout both halves compared to what they had been under Stellini and the latter under Conte, just the latter stage. And I don't think they were too terrible in the first half. So I don't think it was a complete collapse. I think Tottenham's defence was just a little bit blindsided in that first quarter. They still look a little bit dodgy on attack, but even in the second half, after they scored, Man United could cut through them quite easily. But I don't think it's a complete attack. I think that would be quite unfair on Tottenham, and I can't believe, as an Arsenal fan, I'm saying that as well. They looked a lot more like themselves. And the chances that they made and took were very good. They knew to attack Man United's far post, and that's how they got their chances and their goals ultimately. I do think some of Ten Hag's in-game management was weak. I think they took a lot of the directness and what they were so good at in the first half off and didn't have anyone to really replicate that. So it was very easy to get overrun by Tottenham, who just seemed to progress as long as the game went on. They just kept on finding this new stamina, this new energy, whereas Man United really just kind of took their foot off the brake by the end of it.
Like, it does appear as if the top four is pretty much signed and sealed at this stage, barring any great sort of disasters for those that are in there. And like, the narrative around United this season, Jasmine, has been pretty much that they're making progress, there's still a bit of work to do. Like, it feels almost at this stage it's about just getting to the end of the season and I know you mentioned obviously maybe your point about Ten Hag's in-game management is a major red flag that we only get to see next season when he has made a couple of additions to the squad. But it feels at the minute as if it is just about getting to the end of the season, make some additions and start afresh again next year.
Yeah, I guess it's how you want to take it, how they managed that game against Sevilla, and if the picking some of the personnel was the right idea, or should they have gone further? I mean, they still have a chance to win silverware this season, and that plus Champions League would be a very good season and one of the better seasons that they've had in recent years. I guess it is based on some of the former signings that he has to now deal with. He had gotten a lot out of Fred. He's getting a lot more out of Sancho, more than other managers have. It's just things like the Bout Weghorst signing. Who are you going to get in up front instead of that? Who are you going to have as a backup pivot? Who are you going to have as a backup centre-back? Which I think seems to be the main flaws of this Man United side, looking for the kind of general round of quality. I mean, there can be debates all day on how Harry Maguire performs, what is Harry Maguire, but at the end, it boils down to he and other players make a few too many mistakes to be a Man United player. So fixing that, even though we know how much money Man United has spent in general, and they should be challenging for the title based on those kind of amounts, it does need to be reworked, and it does need a complete new kind of structure and something that feeds into Ten Hag's way of playing football and matching that across the whole squad and not just parts, which I think is the problem that we've got with him right now.
Yeah, what is Harry Maguire? I feel like that's more of a philosophical question almost. The other one is what is Anthony Martial, Jasmine? Because he gets half an hour last night. He's anonymous once again. The Wout Weghorst project is over, as you say. United do need. We know United need a striker, but on Martial in particular, are we seeing now that he's just not good enough to be a Manchester United player anymore?
Yeah, I think it's been so up and down for him that it's just not working. And I think if you've got someone who needs a lot more consistency, especially under Ten Hag football, which is more you need to be good with the ball. You need to have those kind of solutions in possession and know how to pass, how to lay off, and be quick in that circumstances. So Ten Hag's philosophy is quick possession, not so much quick in counterattacks, but just being very flexible, very dominant, and almost blowing your opponent away in that way. And I think that's the things that he lacks, and that's why I don't think it will really fit for him at Man United anymore. Even though he was so good before, it's just that level of consistency, and I think he just needs to start afresh and anew somewhere else.
Go on, Shane, what are you going to...
I was just going to say that in-game management that you mentioned from Ten Hag, like, is that Ten Hag's fault, or is that just only serves to highlight almost the lack of squad depth?
I think it's a bit of both. I didn't really see the point of taking off Jadon Sancho, who had been a lot better, or one of the better players last night, and Wan-Bissaka, who, even though it's not completely his fault, I felt like he gave a lot more defensively. And even though Spurs were making a little bit of headway into the final third, I think some of those, it felt like some of those changes were based more on, we need fresh legs, rather than actually defensively, tactically, those players that he took off were probably better fitting to deal with Tottenham's ever-growing energy. So I think it's a bit of both. I think he probably did need to make changes, but those changes are down to how the squad development has become and how in certain areas has lacked. Because they could have scored another few goals, but they have a problem in their forwards where sometimes they don't get the most clinical forward that they have. So if you want to take off someone like Rashford, if you want to take someone off like Sancho, who else do you have in that team? That's the kind of problem that they face. There's no one to really hold up the ball for them anymore and go on to score. It's so unbalanced. Unbalanced is a good word. They don't know. They have that first plan of action, and if they start to feel the tide change, they don't really have the players to back that up in the second half as substitutions as their starting 11.
We're still obviously trying to make sense also of the game from the previous night. The temptation of wanting to say, like, it felt like a combination of Arsenal's slide and City's ruthlessness to a degree, but I mean, I think the overriding takeaway really at the end of it, when the dust is settled, is that there isn't really a team in the Premier League at the minute who can lay a glove on City. Do you go with that?
Yeah, domestically it is so hard to challenge Man City. I feel like some of the kind of narratives around Arsenal of it being a failure because they dropped from so many points ahead now to what will probably lose the title. I don't really agree with that narrative. It was never Arsenal's to compete with Manchester City in the first place. I don't think anyone can compete with this Man City side. There are things Man City forces other teams to do tactically that takes years of understanding, years of building, and Man City have the luxury of putting so much into their infrastructure, their team, transfers, wages, coaching, everything that other clubs can't really dominate with. And then on top, they have arguably the best manager in the world. So if we look at the last match against Arsenal and Man City in February, Man City were closer, even though they won 3-1, they were closer to losing that game. Silva at left back that was very vulnerable to Arsenal's attack, especially Saka, who ran circles around him. They changed their formation from what has been a 3-box-3, especially against the Bayern match as well, which is what I thought they were going to go with, to more of a 4-2-1-3. And they realised that Arsenal's 10, in this case Martin Ødegaard, couldn't cover two pivot players. So they played with 2 6s instead of 2 8s. De Bruyne says that himself with what Pep Guardiola said. So they went with Gundogan and Rodri instead of De Bruyne and Gundogan. So Martin Ødegaard couldn't cover these two pivot players, couldn't break through them. So Arsenal's tactic was to push up another one of their 6s, which was normally Xhaka. And whoever basically, if it was Xhaka or if it was Thomas Partey who pushed up, basically De Bruyne would then come on that player's back, so move towards him and then take over the space behind him. People need to understand as well that Arsenal was one of the better build-up teams, building up from the back, possessional play in the league. But City's press and counter-press especially is so dominant that they disrupted Arsenal's build-up. And so as soon as they got the ball, and De Bruyne is in that space from the pivot player who's pushed up forward to help in attack, as soon as they win the ball back, that ball is going into the space and is going to run through Arsenal. And we saw that time after again. And you were saying how Haaland runs straight. And that is something he was so good at, and something we haven't really seen in the Premier League because Man City uses him a little bit differently comparatively to Dortmund, who used him in that kind of more counter-attacking, very dynamic run and shoot way. But this time he got to run and also De Bruyne to run. And it was just that space in between Arsenal that they created themselves to just run through. City, just realised that they can also just play over that one long ball over into the space that De Bruyne or Haaland found themselves into because of the lack of the pivot player and run. And these aren't easy things to fix. I'm saying it as if, Arsenal just needed to make sure their pivot player was there. No, because if you choose to go that way and sit back and defend and have more players behind the ball, City have an amazing short pass game, which is also going to tear you to shreds. There is no way to actively be like, this is an easy fix to play against one of the tactically best teams in the world, because you're always going to fail in one thing. Now I've said this and they'll probably lose to Real Madrid in the Champions League because if anyone doesn't care about this stuff, it's going to be Carlo Ancelotti and he'll rip it all to shreds. But those are the kind of strengths that you need to fear when you face City. And that's why, especially domestically, they are so dominant. It's so many things.
Madrid aren't as naive, possibly, as Arsenal is the other point. And I was reading Michael Cox on the point that you were making. I was reading Michael Cox in The Athletic, and he was pointing out that one of Arsenal's tactics was to be happy to let Ruben Diaz have the ball. And so identifying that he's the weakest technically and that they would stand back and stand off him and try to avoid that position where they were exposing their own press. But that unfortunately in the heat of battle, too often that they didn't stick to the tactic and stood up a little close to him and then allowed him to play past the Arsenal press and suddenly allow De Bruyne or Gundogan take possession, and suddenly Arsenal City are very much on the front foot. You were certainly shaking your head over the first part of that comment, which might suggest that you're not as far down that track as Michael Cox.
I don't agree with that. They're happy to let so-and-so have the ball. No one's happy to just do this thing. It's not happiness to just let your opponents walk all over you. This is really, really high stakes, really, really intricate tactical play. The only kind of criticisms I have of Arsenal is just that it's something completely different to that. And even if Arsenal had all of the weapons to take on Man City, we could be still discussing the same result, because that's how good City are. Arsenal can't overplay So Arsenal in build-up, they could have a lot of possession, and they got to a certain point where, you know, City's press is so good, blocks off the passing lanes, and all of a sudden Man City interject Arsenal, and then, as we said, play the ball into that space where Gundogan, De Bruyne, Haaland is, and break. But the fact that it even gets to that point is so intricate, and it's not just like, oh, Arsenal lose the ball too easily. It's City is so energetic in breaking Arsenal's build-up play and having the kind of patterns to do so, and being the best team in the world. This is a team that just beat Man City, and look, even though the scorelines made it look like City was far dominant, Bayern put up one of the strongest shots up to Man City this season, and they just blew them away. And it's just so many things. I don't think people actually realize how phenomenal this team really is. And Arsenal's goal was never to win the title. It was always to be Champions League. So the squad structure isn't as good as City's. There's still things that they lack that City have. So Arsenal don't have the structure to win the second balls like City did. They don't have anyone with aerial presence to go a second way, like a second plan B. So all of those things have, and that's why I just disagree with, they were happy to give Ruben Dias the ball.
To be fair, Jasmine, they were my words, not his. So I thought Michael Cox is quite probably in touch with us later on to say, hang on, that wasn't I'm not sure they were happy, but they felt that he was the least worst option of all of them. Can I ask you a bit about Pep as well, just before we leave that topic, Jasmine, because I know Shane wants to talk about Frank Lampard as well, and we'll do that before we wrap. But with Pep, he was crouched down obviously on the touchline. It looked like he was very much having himself, I think is the football expression that is used these days. Very pleased with his efforts. They're obviously scoring lots of goals. They're not conceding. Looks like the Premier League is probably going to be looked after. We mentioned Madrid. Is it more the same for the run-in? Is it more the same for that game? Or are we going to see more tinkering from Guardiola?
Oh, we all know Guardiola loves a good tinkering in the Champions League. So I don't know what goes on in that man's head. So I would probably say he goes back to the 3-box-3 formation, like he's used to this season. I think this 4-2-1-3 was specifically for the way Arsenal plays, and especially because Arsenal took advantage of the 3-box-3, even though Man City won 3-1. I think they wanted to be more dominant. Pep Guardiola always works on wanting to be the most dominant person out there. He is, I would say, I don't know if he would think this was true. He's never going to listen to this anyway, so it's fine. I think he is a perfectionist. I think he wants to be the most dominant, and we saw that so many times under Bayern Munich, even though he didn't get as far as he wanted in the Champions League. And I think that is where he probably found most of his downfall. I still think he goes back to the 3-box-3 because it worked so well against City and Bayern. And I'm guessing that's what he will go with. I don't think he will. I think hopefully he's learned from the other Champions League tournaments and won't go something new, something different, because the 3-box-3 has been working so well for him. And obviously Real Madrid play differently to Arsenal, so I don't see him going with that tactic again to break Arsenal's build-up. But yeah, Man City have Haaland on top of that. So yeah, I don't think he'll tinker too much. He doesn't have to, for once.
We're bang out of time, Jasmine, but as Adrian mentioned, Frank Lampard is worth a quick discussion because, I don't think that the project and Frank Lampard taking over from Graham Potter has quite gone to Todd Bowley's plan just yet. What are your thoughts on what's happening at Chelsea?
They should have never sacked Tuchel. I think we all know that. I don't know how that club's being run. I don't know what their project is. I don't know what they want to do. I find their squad management and who they bought is completely outrageous and bizarre. because you have an unbalanced squad, you have a coach who's not good at finding personal roles, and basically no tactical structures to his coaching. I've talked about this on the show before, when Lampard was coaching Everton, and it will take a very strong plan, a very dedicated manager to get them out of the mess that they're in right now. And I mean, they still mathematically can go down, I think. So, it's very, very bizarre what's going on there.
Jasmine, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a million. Jasmine Baba on the line there. Shifty Lad says Manchester United substitution was pretty poor last night. What happened? Fred, lads, and Martial might as well have been injured still, as he was anonymous. Paul Pogba, Red Devil, Ten Hag. In-game management has been questionable all season, but it exposes our lack of depth. The 3 or 4 subs need to go in the summer anyway. Martial, Fred, Harry, Veg need to go. Right up. Alan Quinlan is going to be with us next. First of all, Cameron has been chatting with the 2022 world champion Rhys McLennan this week on how he got into the pommel horse.
Why pommel horse? This is one thing I've always wanted to know. Is it just the first day was the first thing you touched, or was there just something about it that spoke to you?
Yeah, so every young gymnast starts doing all of the events. In men's gymnastics there's 6, in women's there's 4. So, to starting out in gymnastics, you do all 6 of the events, and that's what I'd done all the way up until I was 18. And I made a Commonwealth Games final in the all-around. I made a Junior Europeans all-around final. I was very successful in the all-around competition. But when I got the shoulder surgery in 2018, that kind of pushed me into more pommel. I was always much better on pommel.
Okay.
I need to say that I was certainly more of a standout on pommel horse than anyone else in the country, in the world maybe. So we were always pushing for pommel. So when we were coming back from surgery, pommel horse was the first thing we were coming back to, because that would be our Olympic qualification route. Mm-hmm. So, and then COVID happened. I only had a pommel horse at the house. Right. Didn't have the giant 14 by 14 metre floor in my house. So people think it is a choice that I chose pommel. In a way I did, but it was more pushed into it because of that surgery too.
That's a weird COVID activity. Like for me it was Mario Kart. Yeah. So
OTB AM,
the Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball. Off the Ball Daily.
A home for your favourite podcasts from Off the Ball. The performance rankings, You Had to Be There, Crappy Quiz, and A Slight Tangent.
It's incredibly useful, and why not do it just because you think it's agricultural?
Subscribe to the Off the Ball Daily podcast feed right now.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
It's gone 8:15, OTB AM. You're very welcome along. It's Adrian Shane with you until 10 this morning. Plenty to get to. Do keep those comments coming in. Some live wires on the comment line this morning. We'll come back to those over the course of today. Alan Quinlan, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you?
I am okay. A bit sort of apprehensive about the weekend ahead, but you popped your head around the corner about an hour ago now at this stage, pre-show, just to settle everybody's nerves and say, listen, it's all right. Everything's going to be okay. I kind of feel like there's been so much chat about it, been written in the stars, that it has to be Leinster La Rochelle in the final, that there are 2 major hurdles for both of those to cross, that nothing is a given this weekend.
No, nothing is a given, particularly when you play against a side like Toulouse. Leinster and Toulouse have played in 4 semi-finals, and Leinster have won 3 of them. So 3 of those were in the Aviva. 1 was in Toulouse in 2010. And I think based on what we saw in the pool stages, Leinster have played better rugby. They dismantled Racing in that first game back in December, if you can remember that. They were outstanding. Gloucester brought a second string team for round 2, 57-0 in that one. Then Leinster went to Gloucester and they had a full team and again scored 49 points. So they were brilliant in the pool stages, and then beat Racing, beat them 36-10 in Dublin. So in the pool stages, Leinster were brilliant. Stuttered a little bit against Ulster. Conditions were really poor, but demolished Leicester then in that quarter final there a couple of weeks ago as well. So they're a side that are just very, very difficult to stop when they're on song. People keep going back to last year's final and the Bulls game in the semi-final of the URC as well, and maybe the previous year when La Rochelle beat them, and there's a bit of a template there to stop Leinster, but it's very difficult. I think they will have learned a lot. Their pace, their accuracy, the lines of running, all that kind of stuff are just sublime, so everybody knows their role inside out. And then you look at Toulouse in the pool stages. In round one they beat Munster in Thomond Park. Then they beat Sale pretty convincingly home and away. In fairness, that was impressive. Strong physical Sale side who can disrupt you. And you look at round four, Munster could have beaten them in Toulouse. So I think on form you'd probably look and say that Leinster are in a better place. But I think the last 30 minutes probably against the Sharks in the quarter-final, some of the tries they scored, the offloading, the pace, and we know they have those X-factor players. So if you put the players down on paper and kind of match them off against each other, it's 50-50.
Yeah, pretty even.
It is, because half and half really. If you were to select 15, there'd be half Toulouse, half Leinster. On
that, right, I was sort of thinking as you were chatting there about players knowing their roles and the experience of being there and all that stuff, but then you take obviously James Lowe's out of the mix, Johnny Sexton's not in the team. I see this morning that Robbie Henshaw's out, and particularly when you look at the threat of a player like Dupont, who we have to come to, and watching him a couple of weeks ago for Toulouse, where he plays the vast majority of the game at 12 and looks as if he's been playing 12 all his life. Suddenly there's an argument starts to stack up for Toulouse.
Possibly, yeah. I think if Robbie Henshaw was out at this stage, he'd be a big loss, because he's such a great presence on the field. He's so physical
and right on that Dupont channel as well.
Yeah, he is, and you'd imagine he'll protect Ross Byrne a lot as well. Not that Ross Byrne is a weak tackler or anything, but I just think his presence there, and obviously takes a little bit pressure off Gary Ringrose, whose form has been outstanding. James Lowe's kicking game is the loss, I suppose. Look, he's a wonderful player as well, James Lowe. He's improved his game so much, and top class international who's a big game player. Jordan Larmour coming in there is an incredible runner. So if Henshaw didn't play, maybe Frawley will play, and Charlie Ngatai. So they have depth across the board there, and they've known Johnny Sexton has been out for a while, and wouldn't be available for this. So they're a side that don't panic. I think it's up front where this game will kind of be won and lost, really, I think, as regards, because Leinster, I think they can still win off scraps. Toulouse have a side that are very physically imposing. Their front five are very powerful and strong. Mafu, the second row, does a lot of damage at the breakdown, but and people talking about that game last year a lot, which is very relevant, I suppose, because the psychological damage that may have done to Toulouse. Leinster just blew them away last year, and there's a bit of focus, I suppose, on Toulouse having to play the week before, travel to Dublin, the penalties, the extra time. Munster kind of gave it everything, and it was a very physical game, and that they weren't, they were dead in their legs a little bit for that Leinster
Different
game.
Dynamic this week.
It is, yeah. Players. They rested all their players. They went to Stade Francais last weekend, and Toulouse rested. And it's interesting listening to Hugo Mola and reading some of the comments he made, that they've been trawling back over some of those Leinster games where they lost the Bulls last year, the La Rochelle final, the La Rochelle semi-final, a couple of France-Ireland games, and trying to find any sort of vulnerability or weakness, which is difficult. The most obvious one is if you slow Leinster down and get really physical with them, that you can hurt them there. But it's hard to do that. It's easier said than done. It's a bit probably what you're going to ask me. How do you stop Anton Dupont? How do you stop Leinster?
Question, right? It's such a...
Because Leinster are physical themselves, they're abrasive.
What do you do with them? Because, as trite as the question is, if you're Stuart Lancaster and Leo Cullen and Andrew Goodman sitting down this week, they have to answer it.
You can't. It's not about stopping him. It's about and that's
how
the
do you
point.
Do that?
You make sure that both sides of the breakdown are locked and loaded. That players fold around if they hit up midfield, or keep going the same way. That there's enough players on the blind side to keep an eye on him, because if he sees anyone switching off, he'll go And if you give him a one-on-one with someone with a little bit of space, he's such a stepper and he can get his hands through.
You have to make that first tackle, don't you?
And you know, if you played with Anton Dupont, you think, if I track him, because if he gets the ball, he's going to do something crazy. He's going to spin around, he's going to get his hands through, he's going to sidestep someone. You line him up then to try and put in a big tackle on him and he can just bounce away from you. So he's a very powerful guy for a small frame.
Yeah.
Like he's chunky but like he's not.
Like a barrel.
Yeah, he is, and he's so powerful and elusive. So you just have to be careful with him. He runs those upfield lines then if the ball goes wide, and if someone makes a break, he's there in the inside line for passes. So scores a lot of tries. He got a wonderful try to start of the game last year, didn't he, for Toulouse? And you thought that was going to give him a bit of a kickstart, but Leinster just responded, turned the pressure on, and were outstanding. So, they'll be very conscious and aware of him. And if you get a chance to get hold of him and kind of lift him backwards or
hold
get him
on a little bit after the tackle,
get him onto the ground and stuff like that. So he makes them flow and fire. What a wonderful player. He's the best rugby player in the world, because it's his all-round game. It isn't about, he's just a real good attacker. He's an incredible defender. He shoots out of the line, he makes tackles, he stops the opposition, kicks with both legs. He could be a ruck in the middle of the field and he could be aiming to go one way, he spins back, goes off the left peg. So he's a brilliant player.
How important is that early start for Toulouse then? If you're trying to beat Leinster, even Rogers writing about it in the Examiner this morning when it all goes pear-shaped in the first 10 minutes, and any team that beats Leinster historically, you have to score 3 or 4 tries at least.
The problem with focusing on a good early start is if it doesn't happen, it has a double effect on you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you've just got to be calm and controlled, and particularly when you're away from home in a big game like this, I think they've got to make sure that Leinster, well, if I was Toulouse, I'd be saying, look, no matter what happens and what results we've seen over the last number of years, Toulouse will still believe that individually they're as good, if not better, than some Leinster players, most of them, because they have that swagger about them. And I think the same will be said for Leinster stopping Toulouse. If Toulouse get in their flow, sometimes you're just running at shadows. They're incredible. The tries they scored there in that Sharks game in the quarter-final, it was very, very even, and the Sharks got some brilliant tries, but then Toulouse just do some crazy stuff and can score brilliant tries. So I think it's important, and it's a very obvious one, Shane, that Toulouse, if Leinster start racking up the scores, they're a very hard team to peg back. So yeah, I think I'd be saying to them, look, we have to start well, but if we don't, let's not panic. If we concede a try or two or we're 10 points down, don't throw some crazy pass that gives an intercept to one of the Leinster players and you're 17-0 down. Yeah. Then it's, you know, the crowd get behind them and all that. So, I don't know, on paper you think this should be a great game because they're two very attack-minded sides, but sometimes they negate each other. I think it'll be an arm wrestle and it'll be physical. There'll be a bit of bite to it. And I think Leinster have spoken all week, all their players and all their coaches, so they've obviously really discussed this, that Toulouse are going to be firing for this and really... They've had good preparation themselves. You know, Leinster didn't bring their frontliners to South Africa. Their coaches come home early. They've had nice little rest for them, and Toulouse have probably done the same. So they'll be fresh as daisies, both sides, and incredibly powerful sides. Just look at the front rows going at it. Talk to us about that bit about, like, so both of them obviously like to keep the ball alive, and both of them have the ability to do that in terms of quick transition around the breakdown and stuff like that. I was watching a sequence last night, I mentioned it a bit earlier on, with Francois Cross, the France back row. Was some clips against Scotland particularly, and he was such a menace. That ability to snag the ball, to snag a player, to slow everything down. How does all that manifest itself when you have two teams who are so eager and able to keep the ball alive, and then you have the likes of him, and you look at the Leinster back row, their ability to do the same thing? Is that sort of where it's won and lost with the back rows, or what's your... Well, it's more than the back rows in the modern game. About, you know, traditionally you think back rows get poaches, they hold people up, but everybody is doing the poaching game now. You know, you've wingers who are excellent at it, centres, full backs, counter-rucking. So they're all being coached that way, and it's an important part of the game. It's about getting opportunities and being disciplined as well. You know, Wayne Barnes is refereeing this game, and he's going to be, let's hope he's not a central figure in the game, but I think slowing each other down, Leinster will try and do that with Toulouse. You know, they've an incredibly powerful
Hold them
side.
on for that extra second.
Yeah, it is, and it's just, I think anytime I ever played, and it probably doesn't change, if you play against Toulouse, is to try and keep them off the ground, actually, because if they
Right.
you know, holding them up for a second or two and trying to tag the ball and stuff, because they're offloading game, it's just part of their DNA. And they kick a lot as well, so it's similar to France. The kick tennis kind of game is about patience as well. So it may be a pragmatic approach. In a sense, Toulouse won't. You want to trying to get territory and trying to get into that Leinster half, because they'll back their maul and their scrum, and they'll try and go after Leinster there. But you know, it's very small margins, Adrian, because Leinster, you know, very, very abrasive, aggressive, physical side as well. But you look at the size of Mafu and Richie Arnold in the second row, their back row, Jack Willis. They played Flamont in the back row last year. He's the French second row during the Six Nations, and Francois Cross. So that's a very, very big back five. You have Marchand in the front row, Aldegheri. Very, very powerful side and big.
Is it a bit facetious to point to the home advantage in the Aviva Stadium as a serious influence in this game? Because, as you say, Toulouse kick a lot.
Huge influence. It's a huge influence, and it's very, you know, I think it's hugely beneficial for Leinster. I think they played down probably a little bit of that, the home advantage. Talking about Toulouse winning 5 times and Leinster 4, and they're the best team. That's all true, but in recent times, Leinster have been the team. They've been the best side, probably most consistent side in Europe as regards performances. La Rochelle got them last year in that final, but if you go back over last year's competition and this year's competition, Leinster are the standout team for tries scored, for line breaks, for victories. You know, they came unstuck in that final. It was a brilliant second half from La Rochelle. If you go back to that final, you think that Leinster were in control in that second half, and some mistakes they made, and obviously La Rochelle, you've got to give them massive credit for that, but this is Leinster's to lose, really. It's a tricky one because, you know, they've got to be honoured as well, because I think Toulouse will be better tomorrow, and I think, you know, it's very obvious from Mola the way he's talking about they've put so much work and effort in here to find any little chinks in the armour. So if he gets his team right, they're a very dangerous proposition. This isn't a foregone conclusion that Leinster will win this. I do think Leinster will win it, but I think Toulouse, if they're in the game and Leinster can't shake them off, they shook him off last year, and they have done in previous games. You know, in 2019 they beat him 30 points to 12, pretty dominant for the whole game. 2011, that's back a good bit. You know, very much in control, even though they only won by 9 points in that game, 32-23. So it's the psychological thing. If they can shake Toulouse off, they could kick on and win it comfortably. If Toulouse are still in this game in 60th, 70th minute, that will be an indication that they're getting a lot right. Leinster are a brilliant side, and they're so balanced, and their control, their accuracy around their passing and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be a really interesting one, but it's a good Toulouse side, and I think it's really intriguing to see, can they cope with the crowd and you know, get a flow to their own game, because if they get enough of control, you know, even Intimac, Peter Aki is a great stepper in the centre, you know, Malia Cruz in the wing, Ramos has been brilliant. So when you start naming the players, they're incredible. There's going to be a lot of, you know, 30 brilliant players out in that field tomorrow. Who
are you expecting to come through on the other side?
Well, you would imagine that La Rochelle will be too powerful for Exeter. I think the game against Gloucester in the quarterfinals, or in the round 16 game, they probably could have and should have lost that game, and I'm sure Rog would admit that himself. They were poor. Gloucester were brilliant. La Rochelle were back to themselves a little bit against Saracens in the quarter-final. Incredibly powerful. They played to their strengths and were comfortable winners in the end. You would think. Saracens did come back at them. So Exeter have been a bit of a surprise package in Europe. Not that consistent in the Gallagher Premiership, and you would think on paper, would it been at home, the atmosphere in Bordeaux will be incredible as well. It's not that far away. You go on holidays there. It's only a couple of hours to Bordeaux, so I'm sure there'll be plenty of Exeter fans as well. So I think La Rochelle will probably come through that. Yeah. So we probably will get the final that everyone was predicting.
We've come full circle now to say the thing that I'm not sure is going to happen.
It wouldn't be great for Dublin if it was La Rochelle Toulouse final, would it?
No, so it'd be amazing if it was all to be missing.
But I think it's Leinster's to lose, really. And
just very briefly, because we're bang out of time, Cian Tracy was writing in the Irish Independent this morning that Andrew Goodman is going to stay at Leinster, so that he obviously wasn't named to the All Blacks coaching staff.
The Crusaders were trying to get him back.
Were in touch with him, but suddenly this coaching ticket gone from a position where they're losing one of the most highly rated coaches in the world to now. I mean, is there a coaching ticket in the world that can compete with it?
Well, it's at a different level. Yeah, it is a different level. To lose someone like Stuart Lancaster and get Jack Nienaber
and keep Goodman,
unbelievable. Goodman as well. Yeah. So, and you can see then that when you have those quality coaches, I think a lot of the noise coming out of Leinster in the last few weeks about the budgets and all that stuff is down to coaching. It's not down entirely to coaching. They have a really good budget and player salaries, and that's down to their success with all the internationals they have and the way contracts are topped up from the RFU. So, but the coaching as well is unbelievable, and you can see that. You can see players, just their detail is through the roof, and they're an incredibly accurate side. So to have Goodman there again, and it's a statement of intent. Why wouldn't you want to? I think he's going to develop more and more there. And when you're at probably the top side in Europe, you're going to get a lot of kudos out of that as well. And we probably experienced that in Munster back in the day, where you have a certain amount of coaches there, and they go on and they get. When you're winning or you're knocking on the door in Europe, it enhances your reputation. Yeah. So if Leinster are winning a Champions Cup this year or URC, his CV is going through the roof. And I think he's still young. He's only 40, isn't he? Yeah. So there'll be more opportunities to go back home as well. So it's not surprising, but it's great that he's kind of staying put and not going back to New Zealand for Leinster.
Enjoy the games.
Will do,
Talk to you next week.
Very good.
Bit of positivity there for Leinster fans. We'll take that at 8:36 a.m. on this Friday morning time to turn our attention to the Women's Champions League from last night. Gilly Flaherty, delighted to say, joins us, the UEFA licensed coach and former professional footballer. Morning, Gilly. How are things?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yourselves?
All good here. Thanks for popping on. I guess we have to talk Chelsea-Barcelona first of all, and Chelsea earning a draw at the Nou Camp, or at Barcelona, the first team to do that in 4 years, which is quite impressive. Not enough to get them in over the line into the final, but they've come a long way from that thrashing in the final a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and I covered both legs, and you could tell that there was probably a nervousness about Chelsea. I do think that obviously a lot of people have been talking about their previous game and the result and being 4-0 down at half time, and I do feel that there wasn't, I wouldn't say fear, but I think that was in the back of players, management's minds in regards to the way they set up. Listen, Barcelona are one of the best, if not the best in the world, and you have to give them that respect too. But so obviously to go to the Nou Camp, only be 1-0 on the night, it is positive for Chelsea. There is a part of me though that would, when watching the game, I just thought, are you going to go for it? Because, it's the Champions League semi-final, you need to sort of risk it. But yeah, I think Chelsea can hold their heads up high, and listen, Barcelona, like I said, are the best in the world.
How impressive was it that Chelsea, regardless of the result over on aggregate, in the end, they responded? Like 4 minutes after Barca take the lead, they get the goal back. They're pushing for a winner there in front of 70,000 fans as well. So they didn't let the heads drop when Barcelona took the lead last night either.
No, I mean, they kept going for it. But obviously with Chelsea, they played a 3-5-2 over these two legs, which they haven't really done in the WSL. So they have to play a different way. Obviously in the WSL, they're used to having possession of the ball a lot of the time in games. where it was different for them. Barcelona had the possession for majority of the game, and they had to just be patient. But I mean, Maren Mjelde and Magdalena Eriksson, who have been in and out of the team this year, obviously with Millie Bright and Kadisha Buchanan both being missing, injured, they come in and they were both fantastic over 2 legs. Like, they dealt with Barcelona's front line incredibly well, and I mean, for me, they've earned their spot, going forward. And obviously, people were talking about Millie Bright and Buchanan being 2 big losses for Chelsea, but Magdalena Eriksson and Mjelde really stepped up.
Will it play into Chelsea's hands at all in terms of the title race? I mean, they probably have they don't have the points on the board over Manchester United, but they have those games in hand and an FA Cup final to look forward to as well. So, in one sense, albeit the Champions League final would have been brilliant, but they can now fully concentrate on the domestic trophies.
Yeah, I mean, I know the Champions League is the one trophy that Emma wants, and the club want more than anything, but it's just not to be this year. And obviously now that's done and dusted. They have, like you said, they've got the FA Cup final to focus on. I mean, tonight, obviously, Man United and Villa play. Chelsea don't play till next week, so they'll have 3 games in hand on Man United after tonight's game. If Emma's always said about whether the team are best chasing or being the ones leading the pack, and she's experienced both as a manager. So for Chelsea, they're in the best situation because she's going to be a manager who'll say, listen, we just focus on us. It doesn't matter if United keep winning, because ultimately it's in Chelsea's hands to lose. If Chelsea win the remaining games, they'll be champions. But if they slip up, then obviously it's harder to get those points. So they do have the games in hand. And obviously at the moment they're 4 points behind United with 2 games in hand. But obviously that will go to 3 tonight. So it's in their hands to lose.
What's your sense of how that plays out, Gilly? Obviously, we've seen in the Premier League how a team have been keeping the seat hot for the inevitable push from another team. Is that the case for this United team, that once Chelsea use up those games in hand, that ultimately they're going to, as you see it, to pip United? Or are United showing signs already that they're the best team in the country?
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar. I was listening to a conversation last night where they were saying 2 ex-men footballers were saying how Arsenal have led the way in the men's Premier League, but they don't have the experience, whereas City obviously do. And it's a bit similar to the women's game, because a lot of people have been saying about Man United, they don't have the experience of leading all the way. Obviously, last season they led up until Christmas, and obviously then they started dropping points. But people have been saying that they're waiting for them to slip up. But United keep proving people wrong, and all they keep doing is keep winning 3 points. And that's all they can do, is focus on themselves. But like I said, it's Chelsea's really to lose, because they do have the games in hand. If they win the remainder of their games, then obviously they do win the league. But obviously you've still got some big games coming up for both clubs. There still will be points dropped going forward. But yeah, I mean, United just got to do what they keep doing and keep proving people wrong and picking up the points.
That United Villa game tonight, Gilly, like, United showed a lot of positive attitude in the win over Arsenal last weekend. So clearly that when it comes to the big games and the title defining games, they know how to get the results over the line. But Villa have been impressive this season, and not least of late. So that game tonight is going to be a pretty epic one, you'd imagine.
Yeah, and I mean, I was covering the Man United Arsenal game at the Lee Stadium, and in all honesty, it was quite a boring game, to be honest with you. It weren't, both teams are sort of not wanting to make a mistake. They was like trying to suss each other out, but you knew that it would end up being a mistake from one team for a player to get through. But if you're looking at, obviously, Aston Villa's form, probably since Christmas onwards, they've been unbelievable. And so it's not going to be an easy test. Obviously, they're going to Aston Villa's Ground 2, which isn't the most easiest stadium to go to and the easiest pitch to play on. But I mean, it'll be an exciting game, but they know they've got to play these tough, difficult games to win the league and to pick the points up.
I wanted to ask you before we touch on some more of those games on the comments from Daniel Levy this week as well, Gilly, because they've caused a little bit of consternation, understandably. So for anyone who hasn't heard these, he thinks the WSL should get rid of relegation and promotion, adopt a single table format. His logic is that clubs would feel more comfortable investing in the women's team if they knew that they were guaranteed top flight football, I guess. And then the counter argument is that if owners just invest, relegation won't be a concern regardless. So what's your take on all this?
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, when I saw that come out, I had to be very careful with what I wanted to put something out on Twitter, but Twitter can be a very dangerous place for those sort of things. But for me, my point would be, would he still be feeling the same way if Tottenham weren't in a relegation battle themselves? You know, everyone sort of come out and said he's only saying this because his club, after they have invested in it because they went and signed Beth England for 250,000 in January. They're currently sitting 3 points off the bottom, and they are in the relegation battle. So would he still have the same opinion? For me, I personally like the method of promotion and relegation. And the thing is with the WSL, like a lot of people, including myself, have been pushing for the league to increase and for the relegation places to increase as well to 2, because the championship below, quite a lot of them now, if not most teams, are full-time. They're pushing each other all the way, and then you've only got one promotion place. So, I mean, I'm one of those people who support the 2 up, 2 down, but I don't agree at all with no promotion and no relegation. But my point would be, would he still feel the same if Tottenham weren't sitting 4th from bottom or 3 points off the bottom?
There's a whiff of Super League greed off it, isn't there? It's like, it's almost get rid of the jeopardy and keep the money.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you can't. Women's WSL doesn't need necessarily a huge amount of investment in your clubs compared to obviously what the men's team does. But it's just sort of, I don't know, the time it come out, it was after the men had just got thumped by Newcastle. Was it sort of a deflection from that? I'm not too sure, but I like the WSL how it is. You know, I've played in the WSL my whole career since it first founded, and I don't personally want it going to a no relegation, no promotion league.
I wanted to ask Gilly just about the role of Everton over the next few weeks as queen makers almost. It feels almost like a ridiculous thing to say in some regards, given that they're kind of petering their way to a mid-table finish. They've not an awful lot to play for ahead of them, and they're not going to get dragged into the battle below them. But they do have Chelsea next weekend, they've Arsenal after that, and they've City before the month is out. Not a great run for them, but in their role as queen makers, they could be really important in terms of where the title ends up.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been at West Ham where we was in the position towards the end of the season where you're safe from relegation, you can't win nothing, but you know that you can have a say in where the league goes. And for that as a player, when you do have that, not that bitterness because you think I can't win nothing this year, you do have it where you say, well, listen, if we nick points off this team, that's going to affect this and that's going to affect that. And you want to be the party spoilers a little bit. I remember my last season there, we had Arsenal in the last game of the season and Chelsea were playing Man United, and it could have gone to Chelsea's ground or it could have gone to Arsenal, depending on the result. And I remember Man United were winning and all the Arsenal fans were cheering, saying, like, they're winning, like, we're going to win the league as long as, obviously, they beat us. And then, we ended up losing 2-0 anyway. But the whole thing of we could stop them winning the league, especially at our ground as well, we didn't want that happening. But then Chelsea went on to win anyway, so didn't really matter what Arsenal done. But that's a pretty dangerous position to be in regards to the likes of Everton, Liverpool, who are sitting mid-table, that they can be party spoilers 100%.
On Arsenal, you mentioned you've brought them up, so we might as well touch on them as well, Gilly. But that comeback draw against Wolfsburg midweek, hugely impressive. I know you said you watched them against United last weekend, but to come back then and get the 2 goals to bring back to the Emirates next week, I guess we overuse the word mentality probably, but the injury crisis that's going on at the club and the fact that they can still keep going back to the well and pick up results like they did in midweek in Germany, quite impressive. Yeah,
and I mean, obviously being at the United Arsenal game when obviously Leah Williamson went down, and you just think, straight away a lot of people knew that it was a serious injury, but for them to lose Leah, to lose Kim in the same week, really, you've got Caitlin Ford who's been out struggling with injury. Obviously you've now got Steph Catley back, which is huge for them, but the idea of them going into, because obviously when they said about Kim Little being injured, the idea then everyone knew really that Leah Williamson would then go into midfield. So then to lose Leah Williamson from midfield, you've then got potentially not an inexperienced back line, because Jen Beattie come in, who is a very experienced player and has done the business for Arsenal and for Scotland. But then you've got you're not taking your strength from the centre back into your midfield because you've now lost her too. So I think going into that Wolfsburg game, again, a lot of people thought they've got too many injuries, it's not going to happen. And then obviously going down, conceding so early and so poorly as well, I think a lot of people thought the floodgates are potentially going to open. But they've got fantastic spirit and fantastic fight to come back into that game, not just to make it 2-1, but to go 2-2. To bring that back to the Emirates where you potentially got a sellout crowd as well. And I was there for the game, the home leg against Bayern Munich, and the fans were incredible. So if the fans are going to be the same, if not better, then for me, they'll push Arsenal on. And Wolfsburg didn't look that great as well, to be honest with you. They looked a bit nervy and shaky. So playing at the Emirates with a home crowd the size of that, you've got nothing to lose really, because no one's probably backing you really to win it because of the fact of you'd lost so many injuries. But I don't know what Jonas Eidevall's doing there, but he's got them believing and that they can go on, and whether it be there from a losing position or winning position, that they can go on and get the results.
And that's something that's been very impressive from Jonas Eidevall as well. I know he has spoken in press conferences about the fatigue and maybe the calendar as well, and the amount of games that are coming at his team. But the fact that he's managed to get more and more out of this team regardless, and I think the same has been said of Brighton this week in the relegation battle as well. Fatigue is a word that keeps cropping up in the WSL because of the fixture congestion, but teams, especially Arsenal at the moment, seem capable of dealing with it.
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult because you look at the other side of things and the fixture congestion, but you look at Liverpool, for example, who they'd played a game and they hadn't played a game for 3 weeks. And I remember when I come on here in January, I think they'd said that they had a month until their next game. So it is the other side of the spectrum as well, where it's sort of, you've got a lot of games for clubs like Arsenal, Chelsea, for example, who are in the Champions League. They're through the latter stages of the Cups, compared to the likes of, say, Liverpool, who went 3 weeks and 4 weeks without a game. And not just once too. So it is difficult. And obviously then you're looking at the players from Arsenal and Chelsea, who Man City, Man United, who all go away and play for England and their countries, and they play a lot of minutes for their countries too. It's about getting that balance. And obviously it is going into a World Cup year as well. But for me as a footballer, I loved playing games. I prefer to play games than train. But I know I was fortunate enough not to be on the receiving end really of much injuries. But it is difficult, but that's why you have the squads and you have the depth for people to step up.
Where do you stand then? Because it leads nicely into that point about the FIFA introducing that mandatory release period to protect player welfare, obviously in the lead into the World Cup. And we saw before the Euros that the experience last year of obviously a lot of teams, England including, getting players in early. What are your thoughts on that kind of piece where I guess the ultimate point is to try and protect player at all costs?
Yeah, I do think it's important. I think because of the fact of we had the Olympics, then we had the Euros, because of COVID, then we've got the World Cup, then next year we've got the Olympics again, then the Euros. It's like they're going to have a while until they have their break. So for me, it's important, and whether it be 2 weeks, I feel like sometimes a lot of countries potentially feel like they're going to lose a lot of fitness during those 2 weeks, and players don't really rest for 2 weeks either. They'll be still ticking over. And players are not silly, they can't afford to have 2 weeks of literally not doing nothing because you're going into a World Cup. So they're professionals, they'll still keep ticking over. But I think the mental side of it, like to go from a season then potentially into a pre-tournament camp where you're away for 4 weeks or whatever, it is difficult. And you have to look after people emotionally and mentally as well as physically, because sometimes your body can be fine in regards to fatigue, but mentally you're tired. And that makes you feel even worse physically, but really in regards to loading and stuff, you might have had a quiet week, but if you're tired up here, then it makes no difference really in regards to how fresh you are body-wise, because that will make you feel tired anyway. So we've just got to look after and protect players because we've got a busy few years coming up.
Can Manchester City still have a role in this title race, Gilly? Because the win over one of your other former clubs, West Ham, the 6-2 win was quite emphatic last time out, and they still look like they're right in the fight.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously they've got to play Man United too. They're 3 points off of United, same games played. So again, you're looking at that fixture. You one of them's going to drop points, if not both of them. But again, I think with City, they are a team that are just focusing on themselves. Obviously, they've not got the FA Cup final to think about. They're just literally got the league to focus on, and I think that will help them. But and they're experienced at doing it. I mean, that they had a bit of a tough start, a bit of a rocky start, but they've managed to get themselves up into second place. So yeah, I think they'll do good. I think they'll get in the Champions League spots. But again, teams are going to drop points against each other, so it's exciting to see what happens.
Can I just ask you very briefly, finally, on Kitty McCabe as Arsenal captain? I guess all these injuries have led to the armband having to be thrown around different stages of the season. But from an Irish perspective, I guess we love to see Kitty taking on that leadership role that she has at times with her country as well. So it's good to see, and someone who clearly is a born leader.
Yeah, I mean, she is. I mean, she stepped up for Arsenal as well. Obviously, losing Kim, losing Leah, she's got the armband on at the moment. But again, she has that fight, she has that tenacious side of her, which was needed against Wolfsburg. You know, she wasn't afraid to put her foot in, and it'll be players like Katie McCabe who will lead this Arsenal team on going forward into what is the business end of the season.
Gilly, thanks a million as always.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Gilly Flaherty on the line to look ahead to interesting weekend of WSL and beyond as well. We've loads still to come. Anna Caplice is going to join us in a couple of moments' time just to wrap the look ahead to the final weekend of the Women's Six Nations. We are going to be, a reminder by the way, at 8:55 we are going to be hosting a live UEFA Champions League roadshow in partnership with Just Eat. It's coming your way next Thursday evening. It's the 3rd of May. It's the Mansion House in Dublin. We're going to be joined by UEFA Champions League winners John O'Shea and Wes Brown, and also in the house, not a Champions League winner but an absolute legend of the game. It's the 3rd of May, which is Wednesday evening. It'll be the Arsenal legend Paul Merson, Shane, who
Colin has pointed out, I think, the autobiography, one of the best autobiographies out there. Was it Colin?
Right.
Yeah, brilliant one.
Up for that, yeah.
Proper couple. John O'Shea was on my flight the other day, actually.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, I was flying back from Manchester to Dublin after the World Snooker Championships. Left in B, but yeah, John O'Shea, what a player.
You weren't taking like little bits of video for seeing in social media, Shane, is what you're saying?
None of that.
It's going to be a brilliant night's entertainment. Get yourself along there. It's an exclusively off-air event. Tickets are limited, so don't delay. You can head along to offtheball.com/events, and we will see you on the night. Just Eat, the official food delivery partner of the UEFA Champions League. Alright, it is 4 minutes to 9. Jess Kelly's going to be with us in just a little bit, and she's sending Shane off to space, something we all been looking to do for the last number of months, and Jess is going to do that for us this morning. Right now, it's time to get back to the rugby, and Anna Caplice on the line to talk about the last Six Nations game. Anna, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you?
How are you keeping?
Grand. I'm chatting to you from sunny London.
Nice. Sunny?
No, that was a lie. It is absolutely Baltic and it is pouring rain. So, yeah.
Good.
I don't know, is it any better at home?
Good. No, it's not much better. That's the make us all feel better about ourselves. Come here. Context obviously is everything in the final thoughts about last weekend, and obviously looking ahead to the weekend coming. And the context around this Irish team obviously is that due to years has been well spoken about and identified of bad planning, that in some regards we were destined to lose those opening four games. Not destined to lose them, but it was written in the stars to a degree. And holding England to under 50 points is a result in some regards due to the context. And they also ran in some of those late tries to almost put a gloss on that scoreline. Are you as upbeat about it?
I was at the time. I was when I was there, because, you know, when the match started and like England ran straight in after 2 minutes for their first try, my heart was pounding. I was like, oh my goodness, is this going to be, you know, what when people were fearing the worst, you know, 100 points plus score, you know, was predicted. I was very nervous after that first try, but actually, yeah, like they Ireland like spoiled England's party a little bit, because you know, if that was the prediction from outside, England certainly would have had their eye on that ball as well, like could we score 100 points or whatever. But you know, at the time I felt really proud of the girls. I thought they just dug in and just never gave up, which is what we wanted for them. Like that's what I wanted for them, and that's what they wanted for themselves, just not give up, not let up. Like there was huge periods of play where England just could not get through. And for the best team in the world, you know, Ireland will really have been proud of themselves for those periods of play and what they were able to achieve. And, you know, stopping England's like tirade of attack, which other teams haven't been able to do. So yes, you know, I felt really positive about it after. Not over the moon, but I was like, do you know what? you should be really proud of yourselves, like for so many areas of that game. But then when you kind of take a step back, and it was only when it really kind of hit me, I just looked at like the overall results in the weekend. You know, there was England, Ireland, and then France and Wales, and Italy and Scotland, which were just much more competitive games. You know, Ireland have no score at all, and all the other teams are scoring and have real chances of beating their opposition. And it's just, again, another like reminder of where we're at. And you can be like, God, fair play. It's almost patronizing or condescending or just a real like, oh, how did it get to this? That we can be like, Jesus, fair play after a 48-0 loss. It's just where we've got to.
Yeah, it's hard to square that in the head. That's totally accepted. I wonder, just in the context of, like, obviously this weekend, if we end up not winning with a bonus point, we'll get the wooden spoon, drops us down to the third tier. Otherwise, if we do get the bonus point win, we may end up in a shootout with Spain to remain in that second tier. But, and we'll get to that in a second, but it felt like the defensive effort, and I know it's more, there's more to it than just that, but like that defensive effort needs to be, given how we have struggled to put points on the board or put ourselves in the opportunity even to put points on the board, 2 tries and 1 penalty. That's our sum total of our scoring across 4 games so far. But that defensive effort, how important does that feel in terms of a line in the sand for this Irish group and in terms of forming a personality for the team? Is that the line in the sand? Is that where we say from here on out, this is the personality of this team and this is how we're going to approach every game?
Yeah, I suppose, because you never want to regress, of course. And, if you can tell yourself that, look what we were able to do against England, imagine what we can do against other teams if we're able to, not just draw the line in the sand and keep the bar there, but actually lift the bar again. So, there were still missed tackles. It seems, a big theme of our defensive effort so far has just been missed tackles. And then, the scramble has been good and the connections and the movement in defence has improved like throughout the tournament, which isn't a surprise when you have so many young players who are learning on the job, that they will get better every week and you link better every week. And, we've got an unchanged side, relatively across the board, unchanged side going into this weekend, like, which is kind of the first time that's happened this tournament. So that can only be, produce stronger results in terms of defence as long as they keep the bar there, which I don't, at this stage, last game, you're going to give it everything. I don't think that will drop off. I think they know like 80 minutes or however many minutes I'm on the pitch, like I know my role, and a lot of those lessons will have come from England and like building into that game. So yeah, absolutely. If Scotland want to win, they need to score, and if there's a really determined defence in front of you, you've got to be creative in how you're going to attack that. So I think they'll hang on to that their defensive efforts really strongly.
Some of those tries, Anna, that Ireland are conceding seem to stem from lack of communication between players, and on one hand that's really concerning and worrying, but on the other hand, I guess it's such an easy thing to fix. You'd imagine on paper that Ireland can maybe point to that and see it as something that they can remedy going forward.
I think it looked a bit. They looked to fill the field a little bit more against England, like it standing a little bit wider. I found kind of earlier on in the earlier games they were very bunched and very narrow, and it seemed then that because they're so close to the defender next to them, there was kind of ambiguity around whose responsibility the tackle was. So I actually think that with a bit more width, even though you might argue that's a harder job, the communication then is easier because there's no doubt in your mind that that's your tackle. So yeah, that's a confidence thing. Like if you're nervous, you'll stand closer to the defender next to you. But if you're a bit more confident and your confidence has grown throughout the tournament, you're able to kind of go one step further, one step wider, and take responsibility for a bit more space. So that, that confidence as well, grows. And your confidence comes as well from your communication. And if you're new and you're only getting to know girls and, you're only getting to know a defensive system, that's really hard to communicate. You know, you can't just like, bang, this is our defensive system, and we know exactly how to communicate that now. No, like that comes from learning, and like you learn that through playing. And it would, you know, be nice to have more games that don't affect world ranking or don't affect, you know, things to be played, so we can practice these things. But it just so happened that, again, we're kind of like learning on the job, and the communication comes from confidence, and then your confidence grows through the communication. So it's all like one big circle that does seem to they seem to be taking a bit more responsibility now for a bit more space, and that's good. Like I hope that they can kind of not, I know we said it already, but not like drop the bar low again, but like just keep it there and keep that confidence.
And I mean, maybe some of the same things apply to the attack, Anna, but like the one penalty particularly stands out for me. You know, you want to be in an area of the pitch over the previous 4 games where you can try and force a penalty, or you force a bit of pressure on the team, and it's obviously not a great sign, particularly where we're trying to get a bonus point win this weekend. If you're in the Ireland coaching staff this weekend, I mean, I don't know what the discussions are. It doesn't feel like they're a group that necessarily talk an awful lot about the outcome as opposed to the process. But what are your thoughts in terms of our ability to carry off that bonus point win, or what is our opportunity here with the group that we have on the pitch to try and score more?
That's hard, because there's you know, and we spoke about this before as well. If you're trying to like achieve too many things like in your one week to build up to a game, do you end up kind of not improving anything? Like particularly, I think like Dan O'Brien's you know, way of kicking in behind and winning some territory is going to be very useful, and I think they kind of have to use that, and she'll be stepping up to the mark to win them some territory. In terms of decision making around when to kick is obviously still a learning curve as well. But you know, if you're playing down there and you're confident in your defence, and you just want to stay in Scotland's half, they'll be looking for like, you know, territory and kicking back to them and putting them under pressure, especially with, you know, like Aoife Doyle is so quick and Lauren Delaney has been so good, like under the high balls. Like they what I'm thinking about now is like, when you win a penalty, like, are you going to go for touch? Like, I'm hoping that they can that's what I would usually think, but I just think that there's been, you know, so many hiccups in the line out. Are they going to back their line out for, you know, driving maul, winning territory, winning ball, like even closer to the line if you're going to kick to touch? That's what I'd like to see, but the line out's been a little bit shaky. Well, I was listening to John McKee talk about their line out. He's saying that they've you know, things that maybe Scotland won't have seen, so I wonder, are they changing their lineouts, or have they a new setup or something? I don't know what he's really referring to there. So maybe that's what they're thinking as well. That they've just got to use their lineout.
You wouldn't like to see them be too ambitious in that regard, given how much it's faltered. I would hope any changes are get it in quick and short, and let's see what we can do with that. Yeah,
but I think that would have been the plan anyway. I don't know. I don't know, because I think that the movement is good, and they're using different options, because, you know, all the teams are just defending Nicola Friday now, so, you know, you just get in front of her and it's good pressure. But like they seem to use Sam a little bit last week more, and so, you know, that's another option now that Scotland will have to look at in terms of their homework. Like, okay, we've got 2 jumpers to defend here. Is there someone else that they can throw up, you know, as a decoy that they haven't done already? But I agree, you don't want to be too reliant on that. So maybe some 5-meter scrum penalty or 5-meter penalty moves, like that would be nice to see, you know, just like give them the ball and like bang, especially when you've got, you know, like Derv running so well and so many strong runners in there, like just a little bit more like heads up and play, maybe, you know, is tap and go quick, like is the space on, like, and just making sure that if someone like Derv, you know, runs off on a rampage, that you and you're the closest player to her, you're absolutely breaking your neck to try and get on her, and that she's not going to get isolated. So that would be nice to see, just front foot all the time, because that's what Scotland are going to do. You know, they'll go quick. They'll look for quick scrum, quick penalty moves as well. So, yeah, it's kind of, I'm actually kind of, I'm not really sure. I don't know what to expect.
I know. We need something to work off. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And look, we'll see. The bonus point feels like it might be slightly beyond us. A win would feel like a phenomenal, and albeit with the consequences that comes with it, would feel like a phenomenal outcome. Let me just ask you before we go: England, France tomorrow, 1 o'clock, shootout for the title. Which way is it going?
I think England are going to do it. I haven't seen England. I thought England were poor last week, and I've never seen England, or at least not this group of players, back up a poor performance with another poor performance. Saying that, I think France will be excited about the prospect, because they have certainly improved. You know, England kind of came in at like, they knew where they were at. They've been like, you know, they haven't been building and progressing that much because their level is so high. But I think France came in kind of, they've had a few shaky performances, but then they've kind of grown in confidence. So that confidence will be very strong for them. Kind of in a way, like head says England, heart says France, just for a big fight. I just would love an unbelievable performance from both teams for like the 55,000 people that are coming. So, well, I'll go England. just cause I think they deserve it after losing the World Cup final. They think they deserve a bit of silverware.
We'll hold you to that. Anna, thanks a million. Enjoy the games.
Thanks, lads.
Thanks,
Slán.
Anna Caplice, Slán on the line there. Ahead of that final weekend of games, Jess Kelly standing by to send launch Shane off into space. Which many of the person doing.
Got me NASA sticker here ready to go as well.
Hey, there you go. Did want to mention before we get into that, just interesting stuff across the back pages today, including this one in the Irish Independent. Cullum Keys is writing it up, and it's in some of the other papers as well. Tip fan set to accept ban for chin comment, and the headline led me into the article, Shane, I'm not going to lie, with the idea of the potential that he wouldn't accept the ban, or that there'll be some sort of appeal here, which seems kind of remarkable in itself. But he's accepted this 48-week ban for racially abusing Lee Chin. It's an embarrassment of a ban. It's within the regulations. It's the maximum ban that can be handed out. It's embarrassing. It's the maximum ban for racist abuse, no matter how severe. If that's 48 weeks international games, what are we doing? Like, it doubles up if there's a second incident, which is still less than 2 years. Like, if there's a second incident, should we not be looking at something an awful lot harsher than that? We talk about protecting players and respecting players there, but this feels like it's very much short of that. I suppose on some level we should be thankful, because it's not that long ago the ban for the same incident was 2 games. I mean, I don't even know what 2 games represents for a fan, if I'm absolutely honest. Does it... You know, exactly how that plays out, I'm not 100% sure. And on top of that, the 48 weeks can be reduced by half if the person in question undertakes an education course. This is an adult man that we're talking about. It appears to be in his 50s or 60s. I could be wrong about that, but it appears as if he's... I was going to use the word mature, but that's clearly leaving the conversation very short. He's at a charity game. He has had no involvement in the game, and there's no provocation, and he roars in racist terminology at one of the players, and he's going to be back in the stands before October is out. He appears to have shown, I will absolutely add, some remorse. He's written a letter to Croke Park. Apparently Lee Chin has facilitated a phone call with him where he appears to have apologised. But I have to ask, what message around our national games that we're sending out, where we decide that a ban of less than a year is enough for somebody who's caught on camera clearly and accepting that he has racially abused a player? What is the correct length of ban for abusing someone on the basis of their skin colour or their ethnicity or their religious background? Like, who knows? And I don't have an answer to that, but I do know that a net result here, if this guy undertakes a course of less than 6 months, doesn't feel like as if it comes close to it. It's 13 minutes past 9. You're watching OTB AM, and we're brought to you live, of course, each morning, as you know, at this stage, by Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night edition is available now. Here is some highlights on the OTB Podcast Network today. It's the Football Show, it's Rugby Daily, and it's the Football Pod. And you can follow OTB across social and subscribe to the OTB Podcast Network. After the ads, Jess is sending Shane off to space live from studio during the ads. A clip from the latest episode of the Six Nations show. Fiona Hayes and Cian Tracy spoke to Aisling about the main areas where Ireland will need to improve. The Six Nations show is with Vodafone, who are main sponsor of the Irish rugby team. We all belong to the team of us. Back after these.
You're listening
to OTB AM. Off the Ball will be hosting a live UEFA Champions League roadshow in partnership with Just Eat, and it's coming your way on May 3rd, live from the Mansion House in Dublin.
We'll be joined by some great guests, including UEFA Champions League winner John O'Shea. Our guests will share memorable stories and reminisce about their careers.
We'll also look ahead to the latter stages of the competition.
This is an exclusive off-air event and tickets are limited, so don't delay. Go to offtheball.com/events and we'll see you on the night.
Just Eat, the official food delivery partner of the UEFA Champions League.
For you, did you see any slights of, I suppose, improvements, or what do you think they really need to look on going forward?
I think especially they're going to have more ball this week, obviously against Scotland. You know, England held on to the ball a lot. The possession wasn't great for Ireland at times. So I think an area I'd like to see a big improvement is that second line of attack. When they set up their system, so if they're going off a ruck or a set piece, you can see they have a second line of attack, and we know clearly there's a couple of dummy options on and it'll happen. But if we go over that 2-phase mark or 3-phase mark, I find Ireland are very slow to set up, into a formation where a defender can't understand where the ball is going. I think we lose our shape after a couple of phases, and it's something I've noticed, especially in the English, it's Italy in particular, but in England, and the couple of times we've had attack, even on turnover ball, we just get very lateral. So what Ireland have tended to do is gone wide, so it's hands. And yes, the space is wide, but we haven't had, nobody is holding any of that internal defence in. So what I'd like to see them working on this week, Aisling, is having that second line of attack, and also their dummy runners actually looking like they're getting the ball to hold those defenders in. So we need a bit of more animation from them, or even running a bit flatter on the gain line. Sometimes we're just passing, you have a dummy runner, but the world and their mother, and everyone knows they're a dummy runner because they're not going to get the ball. So I think I would imagine Greg, and he's especially in attack, when they looked at it this week, will after a couple of phases try and get their shape a little bit better than we've seen, because their ball retention has been good at times, but it's actually penetrating that gain line and getting over the gain line. And I think by holding defences in, that's what's going to give our back three a little bit more. And I will say, last week against England, I really enjoyed some of our back three play. I thought they got involved a little bit more. You had Aoife Doyle coming around the blind, coming in on the other side, and vice versa with Natasha Bean. So they've come into it a little bit. But the problem is we're not giving them the ball in space because we're not holding the defence. So I think they'll be clinical this year or this week if we can hold in the defence and give those girls a little bit space. Lauren Delaney as well, her footwork was really good at times. They earned the few metres they got forward. But I think if we can sort that out, that we'll actually give them space and we'll see them up and running, and they'll be able to use their footwork maybe after they've gotten over that gain line.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
17 minutes past 9. Jess Kelly, good morning to you.
Hi, how's things?
You just wandered into the frame of the shot there, literally just hanging in by your fingernails.
Bit of a glare off.
Pull in your chair a small bit this way if you can. I know you've got Shane's big bonds in your way there, but if you can at all.
See that?
How are you getting on?
Good, yeah,
Happy
great.
anniversary.
Oh, thanks very much. It's a big day.
12 years.
12 years since I did my very first tech review for Newstalk. I had 3 video games to do.
Oh, congrats.
It was Plants vs Zombies, Peggle and Bejeweled. And when Newstalk was 20 a few years ago, I listened back to the audio.
Oh, right.
And you can hear the paper in front of me shaking. I was like, this is a great game.
Nobody should ever be forced to listen back to their early stuff, the first album.
Or even their current stuff. It's dreadful. But yeah, it's a big day, 12 years.
Wow.
Amazing.
Shows how old I am now.
There's a lot of our audience very excited about the opportunity of launching Shane off into space.
Yeah,
so
to get rid of
we'll
me,
do
yeah,
that in a few
essentially.
minutes' time. But
Yeah.
you're tell us about, you've been off shaping the metaverse.
I have. You're welcome, everybody. So the EU Commission do this thing now called citizens panels. So they invite 150 people from all 27 member states to go over and to debate some of the big issues. So there've been ones on, food waste, the future of our cities, and I was there for one on virtual worlds last weekend, and it was just fascinating because a few months ago we were talking with Jer in the studio about like how sport will work in the metaverse and all that sort of jazz. But the conversations that we had last week, or that I was sitting in on last week, were, should we have a specific borderless police force for the metaverse? And, how will teachers teach in the metaverse, and how will we get everybody up to a certain skill level? Because it's grand for us to do pieces like this that are 10 minutes showing off a game and that's it. Teachers will have to learn pretty much everything again, and how to interact and how to ensure that people's mental well-being, physical well-being and all the rest don't suffer as a result of it.
Attention spans.
All of that kind of stuff. Now, the thing with the metaverse, there have been studies that have found that people learn very well within the metaverse because it is more interactive. You're not just sitting there watching a 2D video, you are interacting, as we'll see in a second. Pass me that headset there and I'll set this up while we're going. And I just found it really interesting because, with social media and all the rest, legislation is still catching up to that kind of stuff, social media that exists today. So to have these conversations going on there now about what the metaverse will look like and how do we police it and how do we mind people within it, I just thought it was really, really cool. And it shows that this innovation isn't going to stop, whether it's called the metaverse and whether the players who are big at the moment are going to be big in the future. We don't know. So you put your little paw through that.
Oh my God, this is weird already. Now I know why you were
Have
freaking
you never
out so much.
tried it?
I've never put on one of these headsets.
Ah, no way. I would have gotten something that'll be a bit more.
Wow.
Okay.
This is like almost...
all you're seeing right now is the studio you sit in every day.
I know, but literally, it just feels, because there's the little. Make sure you're holding a controller. Do I press OK?
Yeah.
We're lifting the curtain here, aren't we? This is
How do I press OK?
Oh yeah, we probably should have tidied up a little bit in the background. Anyway, not to worry.
Oh, there you go. Did I do that?
No, that was me. Okay, so just do that again.
Oh yeah, Adrian, what's the crack? This
God,
is
you look so
sorry.
different.
I am so nervous right now.
Are you?
I'm a little bit nervous.
Are you a big gamer? So you need to look
No,
around the
I
room.
wouldn't be a big gamer.
Okay, so I need you to look around the room entirely and
Right.
look up and down. So this is what we got Adrian to do the last time.
It's
and
called calibration.
This is the calibration to
love
make
it.
sure that your play area is okay and it's safe and all the rest. So
Adrian, you look well in this universe.
I mean, I don't look well in the
scanning
normal
around.
universe, like.
Something like that.
just keep scanning around for a quick second. So what we're doing today, just to give people a bit of context rather than just wasting everybody's time, we are testing out a game. It's a Star Wars game, and it is called Galaxy's Edge. This is a game that's been around for a few different iterations for different headsets, and it is.
Shane's notes.
Oh my word.
Yeah, Shane, do you want to just look around?
Just keep scanning, yeah.
Yeah, all around you.
Oh, I didn't turn around me. That's it. Yeah, there we go.
And this is basically, it's going to take you to a galaxy far, far away.
Lads.
You're going to have jobs to do. You're going to have missions to complete. You're going to talk to people who look really, really weird. But if you are a Star Wars fan, this is what it's all about. This is going to bring you into that world. And I'm going to just stand up for a second so I can read the screen.
Can you play this with, if you wanted to play with one of your buddies or whatever, and you both jump on and play it together? Is that a...
You can, yeah, there is multiplayer. And it's also one of those games that is... it's a long game. You're not going to finish this. You're not going to get bored with it in a few minutes' time. Now, what I would say...
Can I swear? I'm about to swear.
Put your earbuds in.
Put the earbuds in there.
Sorry,
Shane.
where's the earbud?
Just hanging down by your head here.
Yeah, there we go. Just one? Yeah.
God, you're a bit more like I thought Adrian was going to be.
Sorry,
Adrian was a very cool
I'm not a
customer.
gamer. I'm not a gamer whatsoever. So this is... I've wanted to go to space since I was a kid, so this is...
Well, this is probably the...
Dream come true.
Who needs Cape Canaveral when you have Marconi House?
But I do want to set, Elon Musk type expectations. If this fails, we will learn from it and our next mission will be more successful.
There's no losing, there's just learning.
Exactly, but...
Oh, shit. Okay,
so I need you to look directly ahead.
Oh my God, hold on. Can I take this? Is fucking... Excuse me.
No, I
Apologies.
Apologies for all the little ears. Yeah.
With your right hand, will you lift your right hand up?
This is definitely more scary than Adrian's one.
And will you aim towards the play, so reach out to touch the play?
Yeah. Okay.
Try not to...
Do I press a button?
So you should be able to, hang on, give me your hand for a second.
Yeah, sure.
So,
Sorry, you're going to feel the sweaty palms there,
oh,
Jess, by the way.
lovely. Jesus, whipped. So you should be able to just reach ahead. So you see, maybe it's with your left hand. Lift your left hand up.
It.
Can you feel anything? Can you? So you see that orange line on the screen?
Yeah.
Trying to get that to go to the play.
Oh.
Not really happening, Shane. I don't think launch failure here.
Well,
yeah, if we can't actually get into the game to play it, it's not going to go very well.
No.
Tell you what, I'm going to take your sweaty controller.
Yeah, do please.
I really wish I brought in some wipes. I don't get paid enough for this crap. So I need you to look directly at the word play.
Okay.
Because it's using the eye calibration.
Yeah.
So is it?
I'm looking straight at it, yeah.
Okay, hang on 1 second.
Oh, we have some action.
Okay, and then this one.
Yeah.
So as soon as we do this, you should be able to use your hands. There we go. Okay, so
now we're cooking.
Oh,
put your hand through it.
Sorry, yeah.
And I need you to touch out and press the trigger button on the back.
Do you need to go and get do you need to go and get a wet wipe or something?
I just need to cut my hands off. If somebody can bring in some Purell right now, I would be grateful.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, so here we go now.
Long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, right? Okay.
Now, if you, obviously when we're off air, you can go and watch some of the gameplay on YouTube. It is fantastic.
Sorry, this is way more realistic than I was expecting it to be, by the way.
So look around you.
Yeah.
So,
whoa.
Again, there's a bit of a glare on the screen, but so Shane is now in a broken ship. He is a mechanic and he looks after droids. So I need you to kind of look around, press the buttons to try and get your bearings for what controls what. I might have to throw out this whole console afterwards. I'm just not able for the sweat. So
there we go.
You can grab things.
Whoa.
You can move around. I'm going to just move the other mic out of your way.
Okay.
Oh,
this is mad.
Colin's just brought in some Purell so I don't have to chop my hands off, and I'm very grateful.
Grab pouch. Okay.
So you'll see from the outset, right, you're on a ship. You are...
I'm going to be grabbing Adrian here in a second.
Oh, no.
I fully thought you were going to fly this.
Snap to chest.
What does that mean?
Bring it to my chest.
Bring it to your chest, yeah.
Right. Punch yourself in the chest, I think is what it's saying there. Now it says punch yourself in the face.
Snap to chest.
What does that mean, snap to
Okay,
chest?
I'm going to just keep talking because this is not going well. The idea is you're a mechanic and you are going to carry out some basic tasks here now to try and see if you can get used to the controls, which is proving quite difficult.
Yeah, it's proving pretty difficult. I can grab that, Jet. Go on.
But just to warn you and to save you wetting yourself on camera, there is going to be an attack.
Oh.
In a little while.
I think the attack could happen soon. I think we'd all be...
Come on, get up. You buy you.
It's not happening for you, Shane.
I'm just trying to... I wonder, can I use my left hand? It's all about the left hand.
Huh?
Grab it with the left hand. There we go. Now we're talking. Go on.
Oh, Shane, come on.
How stupid do I look on a scale of 1 to 10 right now?
I'd say about 1,000.
I feel pretty stupid.
But once you get past these basic levels that 12-year-olds can do really easily...
Hardly going to get the space if I can't lift the feckin'.
Do you know what I found when I did it last time, right? So you know in his head now, he's like... looks like as if he feels as if he's grabbing that thing, and in reality he looks like an absolute Egypt.
I had it there,
When I look back at the last one, I was like, because I really felt in that moment of I was doing all, so like I was doing the canoeing, and I felt as if I was going like this, and in reality I was just like the hands
moving your arm slightly. Yeah, Shane kind of looks like he's scanning. He's using one of those self scanners things in the supermarket.
So just press this button, Jess.
Yeah, that's it. To grab.
Grab and hold, grab and hold.
Grab and hold. Once you do that, once you get through these basic levels, you then will go outside and start meeting other characters like C-3PO, and you will be given a mission. Within about 2 hours of gameplay, it's a long walk to get to the exciting bit of this game.
Get up here. Teleport. Oh, wow, right.
Oh, I think you've done something.
Right. What do we do here now?
Teleportation.
Teleportation. I don't know. Space, Star Wars, so many to choose from. I presume I have to do something with
What are you hearing in your lug holes?
I'm just hearing a little bit of music.
Right.
Nice kind of
elevator
music,
right.
Teleport.
What should you be doing there, Jess? Is this like...
so is there on the screen... So hang on, look, if you push...
Oh, you did something.
So you've got different buttons there that you can push. It's not all just about the trigger button.
Oh, that's up high
so
now.
Use your...
Oh, lads. Okay, yeah.
Do you need to stand up?
No, it's set for sitting down mode. And this is another good thing about the PSVR is that you can set it to work with the space that you have. So if you want to stand up or if you want to walk around, you can do so. But as I was saying, there's a long walk to get to the action. If you think you're going to put this headset on and just suddenly meet Darth Vader and have a whale of a time, that's
sorry for anyone who thinks this is a terrible listen, but I'm having a whale of a time.
Well, that is good from the, several thousand people that are currently engaged in
As long
this
as you're
thing, at least
having
one
fun,
person is
yeah,
having
exactly.
fun.
Okay, and now I'm in the room feels more spacious now, and I feel like I should be standing up.
Well, you can stand up if you want, but see that little floating thingy?
I'm supposed to get over to that.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm too far away from it.
So you can use the little Joy-Cons on the thing. God, you're really not a gamer.
When I say I'm not a gamer, I'm really not a gamer.
I honestly thought when I pitched this slot, Adrian, you'd be the Aegis.
I think we should have just left it with me, Jess, to be honest with you.
I think so now too.
It's space, Adrian. This is all. Here we go.
But we're not going to get to space because it takes 2 hours.
If anybody is actually listening to this, Shane is here and he's got his stuff on him. He's got his handsets in.
Which direction is
Adrian?
He's been
clawing at the wall here.
Where is
You're
my
about
right?
to hit the TV.
Within the boundaries of the
You're
studio.
about to hit the TV.
I'm about to the TV,
That's
right?
the TV now.
Jeez, I did not think
He's
it was.
clawing at a grid in front of him, which have it has 8 boxes sort of lit up. Oh, hang on.
Something's happening.
Something has happened.
I've
here.
got closer to this.
He's been trying to grab
Not my laptop yet.
This is your laptop.
Couch off the table for the last what seems like
Again,
about a half
walk
an
a little
hour.
bit more
He's now
forward.
grabbing the Braeburn Cup. Good man. That's
Am I?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is fucking mad. Right, guys, what the hell? I just keep getting further away from.
I know your view has changed. Now you can see C3PO over there.
Now I'm touching my laptop again. It feels like.
Okay, I'm going to close your laptop.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Fair. I'm going to knock something over. Just it's like the toy show. Colin says, "Yeah, you're not wrong."
It's like the toy show, except for the one that's just not working.
I think anyone who's going for the Late Late Show job should come in and sit through this with Shane.
Yeah, experience this.
Because
Children
if
will be
I
easier
ever
to
wanted
deal
the
with,
gig,
actually.
I do not. It is. Come on now, Shane.
Oh my god. But I feel like
You're
I'm
never
doing
going to
everything
make it
I
as
should
an
be doing.
astronaut if
I
you
know.
can't
Well,
play
this
a
is-
game
Hang
that's
on.
suitable from 12 and up. Come on.
What are you doing now?
That's a good question. So over
What are you
there-
supposed to? What do you
Try and go
expect to do?
through. You have to basically. You're trying to get out of the space that you're in. So
Right,
Did you go through it like through a door or?
yeah.
Yeah.
See, Adrian just had the feckin' canoe.
You see, you say that. If you would have been trying to paddle your own
I
canoe,
have
you'd have been.
to go through all these steps to get.
I had plenty to do. Don't worry about that.
You did.
You didn't really.
Be fair, yeah.
Come on.
I feel like this is a
Let's
level
call
up.
a spade a spade. Anyway, this is not a great demo of this game, but it is a good game if you are a Star Wars fan, if you are really interested in getting to play with lightsabers and all the rest. But as I said, you do have to go through about 2 hours of gameplay before you hit a microphone.
My question is, what should I be doing differently? I wonder here, because all I'm doing is reaching out, pressing the button that I should be pressing.
That's my
You need to
microphone.
move forward a little bit. So walk yourself forward, walk around that object that's in your way, maybe.
Yeah.
It's been pretty much a non-mitigated disaster. Shane.
Very
I'm not gonna
close
lie
to this
you.
thing now. Right, do something. Come on.
Straight in at number 2 on Shane's year of things that haven't gone according to plan for him.
Yeah, this is number 1 on my list, I have to say.
While all this is going on, I do want to mention
that's
Dara
nice
Smith Nocton and the addition that he's been to the team. He's out there vision mixing currently this morning. He's played all sorts of roles on AM over the last number of months, and he's been a fantastic addition to the team over that period of time. Exceptional on and off air as well. So he had plenty of guests at the book. Anthony Ford during the week was the latest of those. So Dara, it's not the last we've seen of you, but for the minute, thanks a million. Good man.
Cheers, Dara. Fair play to you. Calvin man
Round
too.
of applause outside. Good man. Calvin man, we won't hold that against him.
Yeah. Changed my
That's
opinion of Calvin.
sufficiently enough time for Shane to
I need to
have
go
now
home
been
and
out
have
of
a
the
I have to say,
capsule.
I'm impressed. But so obviously,
I think somebody is.
I'm
Bloody
clearly
hell.
butchering. I'm clearly butchering the whole thing here, but I actually
yeah.
have to say it's very impressive in terms of visuals and realistic feel.
Somebody says here, use the force, Shane.
Use the force. Well,
I like that. I'm having that, Jess.
Can we swap him out for somebody else for the next time I'm
Anybody.
in?
Yeah.
Like literally anybody.
Do you want to swap me now?
Galaxies do.
Adrian, here, put this on and try it, right?
And this is
sorry,
this
just
is
so
worse,
I'm not
worse than the crappy quiz.
Yeah, put this on.
Oh wow,
You don't
that's
have
high
time for me
praise.
to do this, do we?
No,
Come
no,
on,
Throw it
no,
on, throw it
no.
on. I want you to experience what I just experienced. Go on. He has to. Because then at least I won't get criticised for being the only useless one in the group. It is pretty
Well,
cool.
I'm not really. It's like I'm back to square one here, and I don't think we need to put our viewers
Trans-
through.
I know.
Or me, also,
Yeah.
just saying.
No, I think that's fair.
Got this one as well, Adrian.
I don't know, am I in the right way or wrong way here?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to narrate for you here, Adrian, as well. You don't have a pals. So.
Hang on, the other one
That's
isn't.
the wrong way around, isn't it?
It's mad.
So hang on.
It's mad. Adrian, I just wanted you to experience this because I can't be the only one that will struggle.
Do you feel a bit queasy now, Shane?
Like at the start, I was very queasy. I was like,
How do
I wanted to take it
set
off.
game now? Set the play area again.
That's no, it'll just take a sec. You see, it's going to take ages because.
Yeah, no, I think we just abandoned ship here at this stage because.
Well, I'm so glad I put so much time and effort
You're
in
back.
now. This is great.
You're back in. You're back in. He's back in now. See, this is the only thing I wanted him to experience: the reaching out and aimlessly pressing.
Okay, just make sure he doesn't knock over one of Joe Malloy's many awards.
Yeah. There's plenty of them.
Yeah, that's true.
So you see, now you understand.
It's actually so entertaining.
What do I...
It's like he's on drugs. He's just looking at a pen.
So he's trying to reach out and grab with his left hand, that same thing I was trying to grab. But now you can see my difficulty. The empathy is the best thing. The empathy is all I wanted, to be honest.
So you, again, the trigger button on the back, yeah?
Yeah.
So use it like your hands. Try and use...
This one, like?
Yeah.
That's the one. Says I from all my experience.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that doesn't really seem to happen.
There was a lot of nervous energy with me there, I have to say. That's why I wasn't sure if it was just
It
me.
is a very cool interface. It looks, when you're on the inside, I do appreciate what Shane is saying now, it does look very cool. It's very hard to, when you're watching it on the TV here, or even from myself and Jess's position before me putting this thing on.
It's not as cool.
It's certainly not as cool.
there's
penguins.
But there are cool scenes in it, right? Let's not let this be the review of this game. Just to clarify, once you get out of this room, because you can actually do it, believe it or not, you do get that sensation of flying through space. When I played it at home, I kind of sat back into my chair because there's like this imaginary force that whooshes you back. Then you get out, you get to meet C-3PO, you get given missions, you get to do a bit of fighting. Overall, these types of games are not my favourite types of game because people come out of nowhere and try and shoot you, and I just don't want to be shot on any given day.
At least I've made a bit of motion.
Oh, look at you, look, yeah.
See? I'm
Whoa, right.
at this,
You're going through a wormhole here, or a black hole. You were, at least. Yeah, you still are.
Yeah.
This is so time is like going slower for Adrian.
Times of the essence.
I'm feeling every second of this. So, you know.
I think I've made a bit of progress here.
A little bit of progress. There's a planet. Is that Earth?
Can I walk a little
Can you
bit?
walk up and press the red button?
Here we go.
Yeah, there we go. Push it.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Whoa, space and time.
Yeah.
You are mine.
Time is a construct of human perception.
I'd like to get out there. How do I get out there?
It would be pretty cool. Make sure you have your suit on before you go out.
Oh, it's telling me something in Russian here. New mission entry. Review mission objective. Sweet.
Right, here we go.
No worries. Now, this is vibrating here.
Okay, so you have to do something with that. So tap the screen again, tap the button, engage with the game.
Yeah, I hear you, Jess. I hear you barking.
Can you hear my tone as well?
I can definitely pick up on the tone.
Is that coming across loud and clear?
Yeah, I was getting that tone as well, but I understand it.
You're still doing the same thing.
Yes, there we go. You definitely pressed it there.
I have pressed the button, which, let's face it,
okay, so you have to look down at where it says review the mission objective, and then you have to try and push to get the mission. So it's telling you to use, is the trigger button?
It's like little button.
Do the trigger?
You're nearly there.
Just keep pressing that button because that seems like fun. I've
got a meeting in 6 minutes, you guys.
What's this button? There we go.
Right, the deckhand.
I will just take whatever it is.
Get to the cargo loading area.
Yeah, okay, so...
Time to get to work.
Active mission. What do I do?
So that's what you have to do. You have to try and get to the cargo loading area.
Use the data grip on your wrist to navigate to the cargo loading area.
Beep beep. Hello.
Oh, this is fantastic.
How do I...
I'm so glad it's you doing this again, not me.
Well, fairness, Shane.
He did better than you, to be fair. You can't be that smug, my friend.
Let's call a spade here. I could press one of these, could I?
I'd say you could now. Look at the state of this. You're doing all right, Adrian, I have to say.
Listen,
this is going to be a great podcast.
There's something under here. Look, what's this? I have something here. See, active mission, right? I'll take that. Oh, ouch. If I just press this button.
I actually can't
that was a
anymore.
loud bang, by the way. We have medical.
I'd like to be out there. How do I get out there?
You have to complete missions. This isn't just about I want.
This is sending me back. Okay, no. So, I don't want to quit. Send me out. Travel.
Travel, yeah. Fast travel not available.
Take anything.
You have to complete a mission before you get out.
Bit of slow
so
travel.
how do I do that?
So click on that.
This?
Yeah.
Now click on what?
Oh yeah. The bottom left, is it? There's a wee blue thing, maybe.
No.
Active mission. No.
No.
Okay, so hang on. What does that say? I can't read because my...
Get to the cargo loading area. Time to get to work. 4X needs your help. Use the data grip on your wrist to navigate to the cargo loading area.
Okay, so the press...
Is this the data grip?
That's the one. So I assume you just press something on that. That looks about right. Or maybe press the button on your controller.
I know what you're saying. All right,
you see the arrow on your wrist? On your left wrist?
The arrow on my left.
Look at your
this
left.
one, yeah?
Yeah.
Press that.
Is that allowing you to do that?
Not really.
Are you pushing a button as you're trying to press?
I'm pressing the button on my right hand to see if I could. I mean, that might be an absolutely.
Are you doing the trigger button or are you doing the X button?
I'm doing this one here, this trigger button.
Okay, try and do the X button.
Which one is the X? This one.
Okay, are we time? Colin, can we go?
You didn't sign up for this 12 years ago, did you?
Absolutely not. And I'm delighted this is how I'm spending my work anniversary.
Well, I'm sure I'm facing the camera, so thanks very much for joining us on OTB AM this morning. It's been a pleasure having you. We've had so many great slots over the course of the morning. Jess, thank you for coming in. There's an absolute pleasure having you in studio today. Shane, enjoy your weekend.
Cheers, Adrian. Thanks a million. Monaghan Derry in Omagh tomorrow, yeah. Looking forward to it.
Okay, and thanks to everybody in the production box.
Keith Wood's up next.
Lots more coming up later on today. Keith Wood's up next. Good luck. See you later.
We could probably spend the entirety of this interview, Keith, talking about Leo Cullen's press conference, which is not something I think we've ever said before. It was really interesting stuff from Leo Cullen, who usually just goes about his business quietly. But he had a heck of a lot to say on Monday about funding, about the comments that came in from Richard Wigglesworth, about hype, and the way that we've all been talking about Leinster. On the hype scenario, you can sort of see where he's coming from, because the words we use around Leinster, it's as if they have been the dominant force of European rugby. And then you look, it's won Champions Cup in the last decade. What's your reading of the way he tried to just lower expectations a little bit earlier in the week?
Look, I've huge time for Leo. I think he has. I think he's plotted a very good course. I think he's actually frustrated with the fact that Leinster haven't delivered more in the last few years. And it just goes to show you the level of depth of quality that's in this competition. And then once you get to the last few weekends of the year, we keep looking back and seeing Leinster as being totally dominant. And they have been dominant in the URC, but they haven't in the ERC. So, yeah, I think he's trying to get. I think he understands that even for a team like Leinster, the almost like the spectre of expectation of favouritism is something that doesn't sit as well with Irish people in general, and I think that's beginning to change a little. But even if we look at the Six Nations game, where Ireland were overwhelming favourites against England, it was a scrappy performance. They got the result at the end, but it was scrappy, and it hasn't put to bed that uncomfortable nature of the favourites tag. So because of that, I think he's doing the right thing. You know, he's and I often forget, I don't forget, but I often think that when people just are in the bubble of a club team or an international team, they only concentrate on their thing, and they get a bit offended by fans, or they get a bit kind of caught up in what people are doubting them or actually extolling them even at this stage. And the fact that the media's job is to discuss the different elements. And we are allowed to kind of lose the run of ourselves a little because we're excited by it. And we also don't have to deal with the day-to-day pressures of it. I think he deals with it pretty well. And my read of all that was, let's stop this for a while. Let's see if we can get the team on an emotional even keel so that they can go out and perform at the weekend.
When the sides met last year, Leinster ran riot, and there's an expectation and a feeling that this is a different Toulouse side coming here in terms of confidence. It feels like Leinster have also improved from last year as well. But when you look at the quality of that Toulouse side, it's hard to see a similar sort of winning margin come Saturday.
Yeah, I thought that was a really poor performance by Toulouse last year, and it's funny because a lot of those players play at such a heightened level when they play for France, and yet that performance, I don't know whether they took something for granted. I actually think that loss and the manner of the loss last year will be of huge benefit to Toulouse when they come this weekend. Because nothing will be taken for granted. And because they're a year older and a bit peeved with that lack of performance, I think they turn up with a view not that they have 5 stars on their jersey, but that they were fairly roundly and soundly beaten last year. So, there's always a lot of talk made for French teams and how they perform overseas. That rarely applies to Toulouse, but it did last year, and they won't like that either.
The spectre of Will Skelton seems to haunt Leinster, and when we discuss their exits in recent years, it's they need to bring more power. And Jason Jenkins arrives, and it sort of felt like they could have put him in cold storage for the last 6 months just to unleash him on a weekend like this. Do you think they will unleash him on a weekend like this?
I'm not sure, and I would have said that the best part of Jason Jenkins arriving has been the difference in the performance of James Ryan. And he has fulfilled that role for the whole season. He has had a slightly harder edge to him. He seems to have got bigger, bulkier. He's putting a huge amount of effort in. Jenkins has been injured for good, but he looked like he would have been integral for the season. And then he seems to have missed an awful lot of games. He's been coming back in towards the end. I don't know that they'll make that change at the start. They may kind of hope to have that additional ballast that's required in the last 20 minutes, 30 minutes. But I just like the manner in which Leinster are playing this year. I think they're playing a little bit differently. There is more edge to it. There's more grunt to it. There is a sudden flooding of forwards into the clearing out of a ruck, which at times they would have said that technically they could do the ruck with one less man. Now I think they put one more in just to make certain. And you can see some of those clear-outs are phenomenal. And the quality of the body positioning at clear-out time has been, I think a marked difference in how Leinster have played.
It's interesting on Jenkins what you say, because I guess that's what every coach wants when you bring in a new signing. You want either them to come in and make a spot in the first 15 themselves, or you want them to put so much pressure on the guys that are there that they step up their game. And what you're saying, that's what's happened at Leinster.
Yeah, I think so. And I'll go back a long way to John Langford arriving into Munster, who was kind of pretty much of a pull-through for a rifle. He was tall and skinny. But what he brought to Munster was a total change to attention to detail, that suddenly the emotional play from the Munster second rows that was hard graft and whatever was given a higher upgrade when you had somebody who's a master technician in pretty much how you train, how you read the opposition, how you read lineouts opposition, how you check on the body language of people that are standing in the lineout, how you rucked, how you got your fitness levels up. The change that he had on all the young guys that came through afterwards was pretty amazing.
That Toulouse second row, though, of Richie Arnold, Emmanuel Miafu, like they are two absolute giants. You've no concerns then that we're going to be sitting here on Monday analysing this and talking again about Leinster being outpowered, outmuscled? Of
course we could see that, but I don't think. I think Leinster have improved. I think Ireland improved during the year as well to be able to deal with that level of work that was required. Some of the tackle technique for some of these big guys was pretty impressive. It comes down to mindset, and their mindset's been good. And so for me, I don't think that'll be the conversation. It could be, and it doesn't mean it makes it any easier. And it doesn't mean you don't lose or tries to line out mauls or to heavy hits that happen consistently during the game. But it is about standing up to that and being able to deal with it on their terms. For me, there's these little micro changes that Leinster have made, both in tackle technique, but also the second the second tackler that comes in. It seems to be doing the job, but we tend to only see these big teams in the last big matches in the season, so you don't really know until you see it at the time. And we know, we were talking about Will Skelton from La Rochelle and the impact that he has had against Leinster teams in the past. But you have to guess that Leinster are targeting to that idea to make certain that they have a plan to destabilise any player that's in that position again, because you can't look at it and say we'll hope for the best in 12 months' time. And you know for certain Leinster haven't done that.
And there are so many games where Leinster are so dominant. Like you're dead right. It's when it comes to the semi-finals we see the Goliaths all come together. But we have seen so many of these players clash recently in that game between Ireland and France. Are there many pointers you can take, considering so many of the Leinster squad are in the Ireland team, so many of the Toulouse squad are in the France team? Like, it will be said, as in the first 5 minutes of commentary, this is as close as it'll get to test match level, to international rugby. Is that true?
I think it is true at this level, not in the previous rounds. It's not. So suddenly, when you get to the last four, the quality of the players that are on show, some of them are like, when you're looking at Arnold, the impact he can make on the field is of an international standard that very few internationals have. So it can be tougher in certain aspects, not tougher in others. I still think Leinster will have progressed because Ireland progressed this year. I think Ireland were able to deal with a more physical game, with, I'm not going to say earning the right to go wide, because that's a bit of an old cliche, but the idea that for every time somebody took the ball into contact, it was really uncomfortable for the opposition. And any time that there was a ruck, it was really uncomfortable for the opposition. I think Leinster have done more of that than anybody else this year.
Leo Cullen has so many options, and he has a couple of injuries. Obviously Johnny Sexton isn't going to be there. Ross Byrne will start tomorrow. There's no James Lowe. Jordan Larmer's likely to come in. What he does in the back row will be interesting, because he's what a decision. The perfect headache for him when he goes to bed tonight. So it looks as though Josh van der Fleer and Ryan Baird are both going to be fit. I was listening to James Tracy earlier in the week. He suspects he might go with Jack Conan at 6, with Doris at 8, with van der Fleer at 7, and with Baird either in the second row or on the bench. What do you think is most likely then when we see that Leinster 15 tomorrow?
I think it's... I don't know how he's managing to keep all those players even moderately happy, because every one of them would be a shoo-in in pretty much any other team. For me, Caelan Doris is the best 8, and I think he offers balance to a team when he plays at 8. I think Conan, he's coming back to form. He's playing very, very well. It's very hard to not have him on the field, but you have to pick van der Fleer at 7. In my view, I just think his work rate is so consistently so high. And it's who you decide to then put in at 6. So Ryan Baird offers an awful lot. He offers, I said it a couple of weeks ago with Joe, for me, he's becoming the guy, if he gets a hard edge, he is physical, he is incredibly athletic. If he grows into the hard edge, you need a hard edge at 6. He's now becoming the heir apparent to Peter O'Mahony in the Ireland setup. When I thought it was Ty Byrne for a long time, it may not be that anymore. Whether he plays this weekend or not, I think you could go with Conan at 6. I think you could end up with having a bit of a change with 35 minutes to go. You could just go and empty the tank. Can you get that balance right, or you get the most out of all the players you have at your disposal?
When you say grow into that hard edge, what do you mean? Is that just a bit more physicality, or is it a mentality thing?
I think it's both. Actually, the best example for it's James Ryan. James Ryan was so brilliant when he started. Brilliant at pretty much everything he did. I think we probably played him too many minutes in the game for a young guy. When I look at him now play, he looks bigger, stronger. I don't know how much heavier he is, if he is heavier or not. But I think if you were picking a Lions team, you would pick him immediately. Whereas when he wasn't picked in the last Lions tour, I think it was understandable. He was jaded by the time he got there. He wasn't having the impact that you'd want him to have. Now when you see him play, it's impact, impact, impact. Now, it's different at 6, but 6 was always an element of an enforcer, in that jersey. He needs to be a good line-out jumper, which he is. He needs to be fast and powerful, which he is far more, much faster and than Peter O'Mahony. But he needs to be able to build some of that additional graft that's required. That's what I mean, really, more than anything else. It's when you look at the balance of the back row for Ireland, you think O'Mahony does incredibly well calling in the lineouts. He's kind of stuck in the middle of an awful lot of things. Caelan Doris does extraordinary work. Van der Fleer does extraordinary work, but they work incredibly well as a balanced group. There needs to be more graft at 6 for that to function as well. So that's why I'd be saying for Baird.
Leinster won their last 3 against Toulouse, and obviously there was the victory last year which came straight after the penalty shootout win over Munster. Their coach Ugo Mulla was saying that last season there was the Grand Slam, their players were in great demand, there was the triple header where they had to play Ulster, Munster, Leinster away in the space of 4 weeks, didn't recover, necessarily take the right options. There does seem to be a sense that this is a much fresher, better Toulouse that are coming here, and of course they've got Anton Dupont at the helm as well, who it feels like is sort of hitting Messi levels in terms of his ability. You just know he's going to turn up. You got to accept that he's going to play a major role in this game, that he's going to be minimum 8 out of 10, and you got to plan around that.
Yeah, and it's hard to plan on him at all because he seems to have uncommon levels of strength. Some of the iconic moments this year are to do with him, but Ireland were the ones who won the Grand Slam this year, not France. So the Irish would be taking a view on that, but not with a view that it was all perfect and this was the top of the mountain. And I think the players celebrated it as they should have celebrated it, but I also think they've got back into business very quickly, and it doesn't necessarily carry over from a green jersey into a blue or a red jersey, So the Leinster guys, they want to win. They want to win their cup. So I don't think they're jaded. I think they're the opposite. They've managed their resources incredibly well. They haven't had to go on a long trip down to South Africa. Their performances during the year have dictated that they were in an incredibly comfortable position to get to their knockout stages for the URC. They are missing a couple of players. I do think the Johnny Sexton conversation and Ross Byrne is an interesting one. I'll be really interested to see what Toulouse will do defensively to try and shut him out, because if they don't give him space on the outside, will that affect him? And if he drifts back at all, that puts additional pressure on the players outside him.
Because the future has arrived for Leinster. It's no longer a conversation around Ross Byrne just stepping in for Johnny Sexton. Johnny Sexton we don't think will ever play for Leinster again. So he now is the main man. He's not just filling boots anymore. He's got to go and take control of these games.
Absolutely he has to. And the players around him have to help him to do that. They have to help him with his decision making, but they also have to force him to go further up into the line at different times. Under pressure, it's a natural thing is to drift back a little and give yourself more time to make the pass. And it all depends on the type of defence. If Toulouse don't put pressure at 12 and 13 against Leinster, if they don't have that really fast defence against it, I think Leinster can actually do all the plays that they do so well and get around the corner well, go through the gaps in the middle, because this defence is not the same. It's quite interesting. You'll say the Leinster defence is pretty similar to the Irish defence, but the Toulouse defence is not similar to the French defence. So it just depends on what happens there. And look, I think if you were looking from a Toulouse perspective, you've been saying we need to put as much pressure on 10 as possible. That doesn't have to be on him physically, but it has to be on his eye line as he goes to pass. You want to have guys in a red jersey out there in the corner putting them under pressure.
There's going to be a huge crowd there. It looks like there's going to be 45,000 at the Aviva on Saturday, despite what are pretty expensive tickets for the semi-final, and Leinster having so many home games at Lansdowne Road in a row. But it is live here on Off the Ball as well from 3 o'clock on Saturday. The second semi-final is Exeter against La Rochelle. I'm sure Rog is loving all the chat about Leinster, Toulouse, and the two best teams in Europe coming head to head, and then the defending champions just going about their business quietly.
Well, he's another one now. I tell you, between himself and Leo Cullen playing blinders all the time, and Rog as well, able to stir it when he wants to. But he very, very quietly went through the process last year. He left an awful lot of noise happen around the game, and all of it being positive towards Leinster and negative towards La Rochelle. He manoeuvred that incredibly well. He plotted a game plan for a guy who'd been out injured for a long part of the season to play 80 minutes of a final and to have the biggest impact in Will Skelton, biggest in more ways than one. And it was magic in the manner in which he did it. It was so unlikely. It didn't make any sense. And it didn't make sense until the last couple of minutes when it made huge sense. And then he got the victory. So he's been very crafty, consistently crafty. I think La Rochelle have brought more to the game this year. I think they've expanded some of their play a little bit more. They're almost becoming a more European type team rather than a French team, which is interesting. So it'll be interesting to see how they go about these games. They've been a bit off the mark. Exeter have been awful and have been fantastic for the last month, and it looks like for Exeter that they're having, a grand send-off for a lot of players that are actually, a lot of them are going to go and play in France, which again is ironic enough. But this seems to be the celebration period of time for an Exeter team who were very successful 3 or 4 years ago. And yet they're getting a sort of Indian summer for this squad. But this squad's going to change totally. So Exeter, I think, will put everything into the game. I think they'll leave it all on the field. I think they have managed to get that spark of camaraderie again within the 23 players. And are playing incredibly well, but I don't think that they're going to have what it takes to come up against, again, a La Rochelle side that are big, heavy-hitting, damaging when they need to be. So I think it's La Rochelle are the winners in that one, and it's who wins the first one.
Well, tell us, Keith.
Yeah.
Tell us.
Well, look, I think it has to be Leinster's to lose, which I didn't mean to say it in that fashion, but there you go. There's a Freudian slip. But I do think Leinster are favourites. I do think they're playing at home. I think that is a huge benefit. A lot depends on what happens around 10 for me, for Leinster. And this could be the making of Ross Byrne.
It does look as though we'll have all 4 Irish provinces in the Champions Cup next.
Sibo going on his own, he gets the try!
The Red 78.
We're both Munster people.
Nobody knows Munster rugby better.
Carberry gets over the line, try from Munster!
Available every Wednesday. Don't miss a moment of action. Subscribe to the Rugby channel on the OTB Sports app and turn on your notifications.